Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call our meeting to order. We always begin our meeting with an invocation or moment of silence, but before we do that, I also always remind everyone to silence their phones. So please do that now before we start our moment of silence. Give you a second to do that. And then if you will now please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And now, if you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Smith, announcements?
Yes, good evening, everybody. So this, if it looks similar, it's nearly the same as last time. The Gilead Road Bridge closure was delayed from this past weekend to this weekend. NCDOT had to delay it due to weather. So Gilead Road will close May 9th at 10 p.m. and reopen Monday, May 12th at 6 a.m. They're performing the final lift of surface on the diverging diamond interchange. And so people should be aware they won't be able to access the Gilead Road Bridge and cross it at exit 23 during this time. There will be a detour in place while work is going on. You'll be diverted onto I-77. And so we recommend, if possible, finding an alternate route to get around the Gilead Road Bridge. Also wanted to share that Huntersville is now working with the town of Davidson to have access to arborist services 2 days per month, and the arborist will provide a variety of technical assistance for staff and hopes to start an Ask an Arborist program that's been very popular in Davidson. Also want to let everybody know you'll hear our budget presentation tonight from our town manager, and we're inviting everybody to come talk to us about it at 2 different public engagement sessions coming up, one on May 12th at Primal Brewery at 6 p.m. We'll have our brew on the budget. Come grab a drink, hear a budget presentation, let us know your thoughts. And then the next one will be on May 19th. We're calling that Budget Bites, where we'll serve food and be right here in Town Hall at 6 p.m. for the same presentation and discussion with our community. Also want to let everybody know this Thursday, May 8th, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Town Hall, there will be a Veteran Services meeting. Mecklenburg County Commissioner Arthur Griffin will be present to detail services available to veterans through Mecklenburg County. And that is all I had. Any questions? Absolutely.
The May 8th, 5:30 with Arthur Griffin, it is also for us to justify if there's a need for a veteran service office in Huntersville.
Confirm the time, because I have 5:30 on my calendar for that.
Yes, doors open at 5:30.
Okay.
And the actual session begins at 6 p.m. and runs until 7 p.m.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
I just wanted to add, we had a ribbon cutting today that was really exciting for the Lake Norman Harbor Hippos, our new baseball team in town. Their opening night is May 30th, so get your tickets while they're available. First pitch, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mayor's throwing out the first pitch.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a couple proclamations this evening, so hang with me. My first one is a proclamation for the 250th anniversary of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence, known as MECDEC. Whereas on May 19th, 1775, elected representatives from 9 county militia companies met at the courthouse in the middle of Charlotte and began their discussions on the need for independence from the Crown. And whereas these men unanimously adopted resolutions to declare themselves a free and independent people in a document which came to be known as the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence, and whereas 6 of the men were associated with Hopewell Church, Hosea Alexander, John McNitt Alexander, Richard Berry, Ephraim Brevard, John Davidson, and Matthew McClure, and 2 others lived in this area, William Graham and Waitstill Avery. And whereas at noon on May 20th, 1775, Colonel Thomas Polk read the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence from the steps of the county courthouse to the assembled citizens, and whereas on May 31st, 1775, the delegates adopted 20 additional resolutions to directly govern themselves and become known as the Mecklenburg Resolves. And whereas Militia Captain James Jack took both documents to Philadelphia, where the Second Continental Congress was meeting. When he returned, he said that the representatives from North Carolina had read and approved the documents, and whereas, upon delivering the MEC deck, Captain Jack said to the delegates, "Gentlemen, you may debate here about the reconciliation and memorialize your king, but bear it in mind, Mecklenburg owes no allegiance to and is separated from the crown of Great Britain forever." And whereas in 1819, President John Adams wrote to President Thomas Jefferson that the MEC deck was the general sense of America at that moment was never expressed so well before nor since. And whereas the state of North Carolina has chosen to recognize the significance of the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence by placing the date of its signing May 20th, 1775 upon our state flag and Great Seal. And whereas this May 20th, 2025 is the 250th anniversary of MECDEC, now therefore I, Christy Clark, Mayor of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim the 20th of May as MECDEC Day in Huntersville, North Carolina. We have a proclamation for Small Business Week. Whereas the town of Huntersville, North Carolina recognizes and values the dedication and entrepreneurial spirit of small businesses that keep the state and American economy growing stronger, and whereas there are approximately 1 million small businesses with employees in North Carolina accounting for 99.6% of all businesses in the state, and whereas the income of North Carolina's small business owners totals over $2 billion, and these businesses employ 1.7 million North Carolinians, or 4.3% of the state's non-farm private workforce. And whereas, as of 2023, Mecklenburg County, North Carolina had approximately 96,000 businesses employing over 650,000 residents. And whereas it is the collaborative mission of the town, working with the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, Mecklenburg County Economic Development, and the Small Business Administration to help our businesses grow and create new jobs in the community in Lake Norman region by providing exemplary workforce training, financial assistance programs, and research and technical assistance. And whereas the town of Huntersville appreciates the support of our small business community by the Chamber of Commerce, Central Piedmont Community College, Small Business Technical Development Center, and our school of volunteers. And whereas during the week of May 12th through May 17th, the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce is celebrating Small Business Week. Now, therefore, I, Christy Clark, Mayor of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim the week of May 12th through May 17th a Small Business Week in Huntersville, and urge all citizens to acknowledge and celebrate the achievements made by small businesses both locally and nationally, and to further support your local business by shopping and buying local. And now, a proclamation for National Police Week. Whereas every day across the town of Huntersville, police officers bravely and courageously risk their well-being to protect and serve our community and preserve the peace and order to which every citizen is entitled. And whereas the week, including May 11th, has been designated as National Police Week to honor the police officers who put their lives on the line to keep our community safe. And whereas the Huntersville Police Department consists of 116 full-time sworn police officers and 21 law enforcement support staff. The police department is responsible for 24-hour community-wide law enforcement and responds to all requests for emergency services. The police department responds to an estimated 65,000 calls for service per year. And whereas the members of the Huntersville Police Department are dedicated to ensuring public safety and ensuring the quality of life in the town of Huntersville by serving its leaders and mentors, educating the community about the importance of public safety. And whereas we appreciate the extraordinary efforts and sacrifices made by officers and their family members daily to protect our schools, workplaces, roadways, and homes, now therefore I, Christy Clark, Mayor of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim the week of May 11th through May 17th as National Police Week in the town of Huntersville. So thank you, and thank you to our officers who are here every meeting to keep us safe. We appreciate you. Okay. Commissioner Quarles, do you want to say a word?
No, I want to present the proclamation to John for.
Did you want to say a word to them about it, though? the chamber?
Well,
He said no.
I wasn't prepared to say a word. I don't want to
Just-
seem like it's my show, but I was asked to present this to Mr. John Alexander for Small Business Week for Lake Norman Chamber. So again, John, I want to present this to you. Thank you. And Ethan, if you can get me on my good shot.
Ladies.
The next item on our agenda is a presentation by Edison Platt, Director of North Carolina State of Veterans Services.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Huntersville leadership, thank you very much for having me here. My name is Edison Platt. I'm the Director for State Veteran Services for the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. I'm here to showcase why the word why, or the statement why, we should have a veteran service officer in our midst here in our city of Huntersville for the purposes of supporting our veterans across the board. Commissioner Kors, the slides can get set up there for me. Oh, clicker, okay, here we go. Okay, so the first slide, I'm just gonna present a lot of data, because I know leadership, y'all love data. Data drives the information, which drives the approval process, which drives the execution of our need spaces. So this particular slide right here, I wanna just showcase our 14 congressional districts that DMVA has oversight on. And of the 14 we cover 9 at this point, and we're trying to advocate to get some more offices, state offices, to cover the rest of those districts itself. We have a total of 13 offices across 4 regions, and then from there, we also have oversight of the Hunter County Veteran Service offices as well, indirectly with them versus directly with the state offices and the rest of the information that we handle at the state level. Let me pinpoint to your region. This is Region 2. This is the Piedmont region. This is one of 4 regions that we actually have oversight on. As you can see, there is 196,000 accounted for veterans in our midst in the 19 total counties that we have oversight in this Piedmont region. Based on these numbers, Mecklenburg County has approximately 52,000, one of the largest population of veterans in itself. And of course, if I'm correct, Huntersville falls under District 12, which in turn has, give or take, anywhere from 38,000 to 50,000 veterans residing within that district. Mecklenburg is a large county, and of course, of that, 196,000 total in 19 counties. With that, we have a total of 68 veteran service officers that try to cover 196,000 veterans, okay? It is a daunting task. This is why we're trying to meadow in and say, hey, we need the support at the more local areas and get a VSO there, so that way a lot of veterans don't have to travel 30, 45 minutes to a county office and or state office. And by the way, with the traffic and all the congestion and everything in between, and a lot of veterans work in a different county versus the current county they reside in, so therefore they can't come back home to their county to get service. They have to still go across county to that particular area to work in, right? So this is why we have to showcase this data and understand veterans themselves, it's not a one-time stop shop and move out. Like if we were to go to DMV, we register our vehicle, it's one time the whole year. We don't have to come back again. Veterans on a day in and day out can come up to 5 to 6 times in a single month time frame just to get the processes completed properly, upload it to the Department of VA, get it processed, approved, adjudicated, and then at some point, they get awarded that service connection disability. Then on top of that, they're eligible for other state and local benefits, which then they got to come back to our veteran service officer to go ahead and apply for. Because our veteran service officers not just do claims and processing, but their holistic approaches of trying to take care of the veteran, surviving spouses, and their dependents. education scholarship, healthcare coverage, compensation, employment, outreach, suicide prevention, everything these veteran service officers do day in, day out. And this is why this population versus the veteran-centric is really daunting, because we need more veteran service officers in this state to support. And I'll show you a different slide on the next slide here. All right, this slide right here depicts the demographics of our footprint. Right now, 615,000 veterans we are servicing that are accountable for service and connection side, but there's a 680,000 under the Veterans Health Administration side, so two different entities under the same department. There's the National Health Administration, there's the National Benefits Administration, and there's the National Cemetery Administration. Three different departments under the Department of VA. They don't crosstalk. So therefore, what numbers I see from one entity to another is not the same. But at the same time frame, our VSOs have to crosstalk with all three agencies at any given day. As you can see, breaking down the race distribution, percent of veterans by gender, and then the periods of service, okay? Right now, the Gulf War is the most highest percentage, and then of course it trickles down to the Vietnam era, Gulf War, Korean War, and then of course our World War II, God bless them, because there are approximately 0.4% of them left in our existence nationally. Okay, and you can see the demographics on the left-hand side by the age range. Approximately 70% of our veteran population are able to work and or employed or have to have other means of employment or necessities. And then the last 22% are our 75-year and older veteran population that, of course, in need of us for services and healthcare coverages. Here are the top 10 states for veteran population. We are the 7th in the nation with the most veterans accounted for, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just say accounted for. Right now, we think there's close to 1 million veterans in North Carolina in itself when it comes to the numbers. But accounted for, that's what we have to go off of from the VA GDX report. And then from there, of course, at the same time frame, the percentages of veterans by count-wise. So we're third with 680,000 on the right-hand side of that slide. So we are a large entity in North Carolina. These are the federal funds of the Department of VA. Folks, federal funds. This is a veteran. Let me just give you a pinpoint instruction on what a veteran gets. A veteran goes to service, does his or her time, depending on how long, from 2 years to 30 years, it does not matter. If they had any disabilities incurred in service, they can go and apply for those services through the Department of VA. We go and process it, gets it up. The VA then compensates that veteran from 0% non-compensated but they're service connected for healthcare coverage, all the way up to 100% compensated in healthcare coverage, and then on top of that, additional benefits. One veteran alone can generate $4,500 non-taxable fund from the federal government per veteran. We're not talking also the surviving or the spouse and dependents, eligible dependents, of course, so it could go up. So you're talking about one veteran, if they're service connected for 100% permanent total, can generate $48,000 a year by themselves in federal non-taxable funds for their disability that incurred in service. They're still eligible to go and get employed, to go ahead and do what they need to do on their social aspect needs. But this is from during the time frame of their service. From that standpoint, that's non-taxable, that they're spending those funds in your local economy, in your county. These are funds that they've earned and are eligible for, spending it. They're out here earning these rights to go ahead and apply for businesses, which the VA federal covers a lot of their expenditures from that startup business. And now you know they're expanding our GDX within our economy here. These are the folks. Not only that, the compensation continues after the veteran passes, it passes on to their surviving spouse. Depending on eligibility criteria, it passes on to their dependents as well. So this income is very important to the veteran themselves. It changes their lives, but at the same time, they're spending these funds here in our local economy to increase it and to bolster it and make us more. But the VA spends billions of dollars, as you can see up here, just from pension compensation in the top right to federal expenditures on how much they pay for constructions and everything you can think of VA related in North Carolina, those are the numbers that the VA is pushing down our way. Now, this slide right here depicts the income and economic snapshot. Let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, veterans are not in a needy crisis or needy want. These veterans have education background, have employment background, have experience background, and in turn, they're coming here to want to spend and live in your economy, and we're here to service them. That's why it's so important to try to have a VSO in our local areas to increase that threshold for all our veterans that cannot be seen every single day, because, like I said, they come 4 or 5 times monthly for other type of benefits, state, federal, local benefits, healthcare coverage, you name it, whatever it is. And these numbers are the sheer numbers. The one number I just want you to look at is the total number of veterans below poverty in North Carolina, 47,000. I know with that extra VSO or extra VSOs at the state and county levels, we can reduce that, because the more that we can get these veterans in to get their claims processed, the more that they can get service connected, get compensated, and from there, guess what? They can now utilize those funds to survive and live properly. So as you can see, these numbers, I won't go over through every single one of them itself, but this is the sheer numbers that we're receiving, we're conducting every day. Income and economic snapshot. Like I said, a veteran, one-time veteran getting service connected from 10% to 100%, on average $50,000 just from non-taxable federal funds if they've earned those eligibilities. Look at their own businesses. They're out there. VA covers a lot of their expenses in licensees and fixtures and franchisees, tags and stuff, and they can still build their own business within our backyard. And of course, individuals employed by veterans-owned business is up there, and we always want to try to increase that in itself. So these are just, like I told you, these numbers say a lot. They mean a lot, and it helps us out to understand this is why we're here. This is why I'm here tonight, to talk, educate, and inform you all. We need your support at the state, county, and local areas to get more support to make sure that we can cover all our veterans nonstop. Okay, education. As you can see right here, I mean, about 70% or higher veterans are coming out of the military with a bachelor's degree or at least associate's degree and higher, okay? So they're coming educated, they're coming experienced, they're ready to work, but at the same time frame, they want to be taken care of on the side of the compensation claims process from their DOD and military life time frame to transitioning to the civilian sector. And this is where we're trying to help them through you, helping us get the proper manning and funding to support us in this endeavor. State and regional veteran service center offices. Look at this is the one slide I want you just to take a look. Look at the county and state vet field offices. In North Carolina, we have 92 county veteran service officers. In the state, we have 12 offices. So 92 county offices, 12 state offices. Florida has 33 state because they don't have much of a county concept. Virginia has 36 and 0. But if you look at the capacity to the right-hand side, Virginia and Florida, look at the numbers of Florida VSOs, 218 plus 87 state. Combined together, they got a lot of personnel, and they got 1.4 million veterans, of course. So our numbers match up, but we're still below the threshold of trying to get more VSOs on hand. Just like if we were at the DMV office. If you go to the DMV office, we hope there's at least 30 employees working there nonstop, right? It's a lot of us coming through the DMV. But at the end state, there's but 2 VSOs in an office that has 20,000 veterans trying to come monthly to get these services done. And we have to just tell them, hey, we have appointments or walk-in basis. This is the support that we need. We offer scholarships for veterans, dependents of wartime veterans. So we are able to give 8 semesters worth of college education to a wartime era dependent at any in-state institution in North Carolina. And so just the state benefits alone, that's an extra income and compensation. And I'm talking healthcare coverage, income, household adaptation for housing, all sorts of benefits these veterans can collect. Not just the compensation pension, but all the supporting realms through that process. So that's why I said in the hundreds and hundreds, I would even say closer to the billions that we're generating for the North Carolinian veteran population. And that will conclude my presentation. All I ask of you tonight is this. As a director for the State Veteran Services Office, I go around all of the state, counties, local areas, and I want to advocate. I'm here to advocate for those 680,000 veterans. I'm advocating for those surviving spouses that still need support after their loved ones has passed. I'm here to advocate for those dependents who want to go to college and have earned those rights through that veteran, therefore we can process this. It takes time. Time also means I need numbers. I need VSOs present. I need VSOs at the local areas to support the local veterans so that way they can get those claims processed in and out and turned around in a proper time. I'm here to advocate. As a veteran myself for 21 years in the Army, I transitioned from Germany to here. It's a hard transition. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what state I wanted to live in. I didn't know what I wanted to be after post-military. But because I was finally able to run into a VSO, talk to them, find out what they can do for me, ask of me for my documentation. Next thing I know, I'm a taking care veteran, and now I'm in a position to take care of the 680,000 veterans. So I thank you at this time frame. I'll take any questions if you have them at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Commissioner Quarles?
Director Platt, first I want to thank you for coming to share the need for Veteran Service Office. You mentioned the economics, and that's what I've pushed a lot, is we're losing millions of dollars in Davidson, Cornelius, and Huntsville because there are so many veterans who refuse to file for a claim because they don't want to drive to Charlotte. I'm going to use something simple as getting a license tag for someone may have served in Vietnam and/or Desert Storm. Can you explain the process? If I want to get a Desert Storm tag on my car, I print the form out on my computer. Can you explain what happens next for me to even get it back to DMV?
Yes, so typically for a license plate request, the veteran has to either go two places. If they're literate in the computer systems, they can go to the website, pull up the form. They still have to fill it out. From that standpoint, they have to drive to our local veteran service office, wherever the nearest one is. And from there, we adjudicate that they are indeed a veteran, and then from there, we can look at the system and validate it. We sign off on behalf of the secretary and myself. They sign off on that form. DMV will not accept that form unless one of our signatures is on there. Once that veteran has received that form, they then now have to take it to the DMV, to the nearest DMV, and apply for it, process it, and eventually turn around and they get that license. Sometimes what they have to do is they have to re-adjudicate every year that they are a veteran in a particular status, whatever case may be. So they sometimes may have to, because a lot of times, like the property tax assessments, sometimes they make them re-adjudicate yearly for the property tax assessment. DMV-wise, as long as they have not changed the status, then at that time frame, they can have the plate at that point. But the policies from the DMV changes, we have to learn on it, and then from there, we have to make sure the veterans are aware, because we have heard horror stories when it comes to that process. But the key thing is they have to go and do this, which in turn, if we had it local, it could be done right then and on the spot. They could go right next door to DMV, wherever it's nearest at, and get it processed. So it's time consuming, I can tell you that, when it comes to the process DMV, property tax assessments, scholarships, whatever, hunting fishing license is another one that they can apply for. So it's a process, and it can be a daunting process if the veteran doesn't understand, first and foremost, how to do the process.
And that's the problem. If a veteran never go to a veteran service office, they never know some of the other benefits that he or she may be entitled to. Right. You may need a bed, and you might spend $10,000 on a bed, but the Veteran Affairs may cover for that expense. That's $10,000. Could be in that household that could be used in your town. But there are so many different processes and forms that we, as veterans, need. We will have to drive to your office. It takes maybe 1 minute, if we can get an appointment with you, first of all.
Right, correct.
And if we can't get an appointment, we're going to be there for quite some time. We'll have to come back. So driving from Davidson to Charlotte, can't get an appointment, drive back to Davidson, get an appointment, back to DMV, which takes 1 minute. So again, it's tedious. It's a lot of economics that's lost in our towns, and that's what I try to get people to realize. There's a lot to it. I'm very blessed that my children was awarded the scholarship because I served in Desert Storm. but my wife and I don't have to pay for their college. We don't send them money for monthly. That's a stipend that the VA gives them. That's so much extra income that can be in our towns if we just take advantage of those benefits. So again, I want to thank you. And I don't want to take up too much time, but it's a long process. It's a lot of economics that we can bring in our towns that can be spent in our stores that will help us with our sales taxes.
Sir, I appreciate that. And just in closing, here's what I can tell you. The Department of VA has been awarded, of course, we're all aware of it, $320 billion to support veterans across the nation. From that standpoint, the VA has been funded to automatically award every veteran the 100% permanent total status, correction. That is the end point. Those billions are there sitting at the disposal of that veteran, but we need a VSO who's knowledgeable, who has the time, then can bring those veterans in. I need the veterans to talk to other veterans and have you been service yet? Have you been service connected yet? You'd be surprised what veterans are eligible for and they think they're not. You'd be surprised what the surviving spouse can still receive upon the passing of a veteran. It continues on. So that's why I say the funds are there. We just need to resource them and gather them, but we need the support to have the manning to be able to do all that itself, Commissioner. So, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, please advocate for the state agency, for the county agencies, for the local agencies in respects to saying, hey, if there's funding available, let's get a part-time, let's get a full-time VSO in this particular area to support. I'll educate them. I'll get them experience. I'll get them up and running. That's not a problem. That's my job. Thank you very much for your time, leadership. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Roberts? Presentation of the manager's budget.
I'm in a bad spot. You put me behind veteran services. I mean, I can't follow that. I can make it short and just say tax rate's going to stay the same and then move on and Jackie can take over. But I will say the very first thing is we are proposing tax rate to stay the same. That's probably further on in this presentation, but that's probably the most important. I'm going to hit the highlights. And first of all, I should say, thank you to staff, obviously Jackie, Patty, I don't know where all they are in the room, and the department heads, all the folks that work for the town that kind of obviously are the brains behind this operation that helps us put this budget together, but most importantly, Jackie and Patty to sort of taking all that and putting it into a format that hopefully you can understand and this board can get behind and adopt. There are several workshops that are coming up later on. You'll see that at the end. So I'm going to hit the highlights. I'm going to do estimates. I'm not going to read the number out to the penny, so just bear with me, and we will talk more about the budget as we move through the process to get to a point where we adopt it. So short version, this budget is roughly $125 million. It's made up of multiple funds. General fund is roughly $90 million. You have various power bill expenditures. We're doing a lot more paving, street resurfacing, and also sidewalk work, so you'll see the expenditures there that are up 80%. Also, other funds that make up this total budget besides the general fund is enterprise funds, which include electric, and also HFFA, which is Huntersville Family Fitness Aquatic Center. Electric is roughly $29 million, and HFFA is roughly $3.8 million. And then you also have special revenue funds that make that up, which are Transportation Reserve, Commerce Station, and Land Development and Grants, which are roughly 2.8. Total all those different funds up, and you ultimately at your $125 million. That's an increase from prior year from $110 million. This budget obviously is balanced. The estimated assessed value for FY26, based on county's assessor's office, is roughly $16.8 billion. We are obviously growing here in Huntersville. As you can see, what I would tell you, especially out towards the I-485, 77 corridor, millions upon millions of square feet, probably 4 or 5 million square feet of industrial flex space, lots of obviously residential, but some of these projects are $170 million projects, $200 million projects, et cetera. So we have a lot of growth going on in town. So this represents, you'll probably see this continue for the next several years. what does 1 penny generate? 1 penny generates roughly $1.6 million. Obviously, our largest property tax collection is our largest source of general revenue funds. As I told you earlier, there's no change in the tax rate to stay at 22.75. What are we doing to the fees that affect the revenues? All of our fees are going to stay flat. Solid waste fee is going to continue to stay at 154. Vehicle fees is continued to stay in the manager's recommended budget at $20. Stormwater fees remain the same. Land development fees remain the same. And the residential and commercial electric rates, if you're an electric city, or serviced by electric cities, would stay the same also. The only thing that we'll get an update on is the REPS riders, which is basically a renewable energy. As far as personnel expenditures, there's a total of 14 positions in this budget. A couple what I would say are kind of newer items. Obviously, these are new positions, but some new things that we're taking on. School resource officers. We have school resource officers in middle schools and high schools, but we do not have them in elementary schools. And that's sort of new that you're seeing across the state and in various areas there where they're providing school resource officers in the elementary schools. And what we're proposing is to hire 3 resource officers, and we split those between the elementary schools. We have 6 CMS elementary schools, and so they would rotate around. Also, so that's what I'd say is new because we've never provided it in elementary schools before. Also, civilian traffic investigators. Statutes have changed in recent years to allow civilians to do some of this, what I'd say, basic traffic investigation. You don't necessarily have to have the badge and the gun, et cetera, and uniform. As you know, it's tougher and tougher to hire police officers. Typically, we have a better shot at hiring civilian force, so we are moving in that direction where we can to allow civilians to do some aspects of the police department. Also, the next is, as we're continuing to convert, as you know, we've hired, I want to say police officers here, but fire, we moved fire over, so we're continuing to move and build our forces up with 3 assistant fire chiefs that's proposed in this budget. Also, with our parks growing, parks operation tech and events assistant, as we continue to grow our events also and programs. There are a couple positions in here that we would hire around January because I don't have any seats to put them in. You know, obviously, look out the back door, we're building a new town hall. We expect to be in that building by January 1, so we will look, there will be some positions that we would hire at a half a year. That's a communication creative services specialist and also code enforcement as we continue to build out. In this budget also is a shift differential for PD. So obviously if you work day shift, night shift, so we will be looking at differential pay to address that. Also retirement increases and expenses associated with that. And then in this proposed budget, we look every year at sort of our surrounding areas. What are they doing? The Cornelius's, the Davises, areas we compare to, whether it's Mecklenburg County, different places. We're proposing a COLA. The COLA is based off of the calendar year 24 consumer price index for all urban areas. And then the merit is 3% as a proposal, up to a 3% merit. So total of 6%. Other operating expenditures, as we continue to grow, there's expenses associated with solid waste. New homes means new cans. Obviously, there's also in the contract, there's a CPI increase that's associated in the contract. There's also attainable housing funds. This previous year, this existing year we're in now, current year we're in now, we have been doing things to attract attainable housing and to partner with various developers, et cetera. Some of the developments that move forward are bringing forward attainable housing. We're also doing some things on our own to partner with, whether it's a Habitat, other entities to provide attainable housing. So there's funds in here for that, continue that goal. Also, as we we move into the new town hall, there's expenses associated with moving into a new town hall, so operations associated with that. HFFA with the Huntersville Fitness and Aquatic Center operation. In previous years, we've had to come back and do budget amendments throughout the year. What we're doing now is actually trying to get a truer picture at the beginning that that place, you know, it provides service throughout town. It's not making money. It's never meant to make money. It's there to provide a service. And so we're just really truing that up and just saying, hey, we're going to have to provide some dollars to continue to run that operation. There's various planning studies that are involved. We've got to look at traffic patterns in and around downtown. So we're looking at traffic planning studies related to Gilead Road 115 intersection and corridor. And then also we're looking to, as we continue to build out our greenway system will literally run from Asbury Chapel all the way out to Beatty's Ford Road. And then from Gilead Road all the way up to 73 and tie into Burkdale is our overall sort of greenway system. But a component of that is crossing Concord Road, Huntersville Concord Road, here as you sort of go around the curve right at Vermillion. And there's a greenway system that's going to tie in there, but actually looking at studying going under instead of over there in that right where Vermillion is. So we're studying to see if we can do a tunnel under Huntersville Concord Road instead of crossing above ground. Also, other expenditures in the 5-year forecast and what the 5-year forecast looks like. We have obviously existing debt that we have out there, and then as we take on the full year of Town Hall, as that opens, the debt related to that, and recall we have transportation and park and rec bonds associated that the voters have approved, so increase in debt related to that. We're looking to do a Fire Station 5 out off of Rama Church on the land that we purchased recently on that. And what I tell you to do is when you're looking at this, I think it's a 215-page or so budget document, just focus what I would tell you to do if you were going to do some bathroom reading. Focus on the manager's message, which is maybe 7 or 8 pages. If you're bored, go through all 200 and some pages. Also, if you want to focus on what are the big capital items out there, look at our 5-year financial forecast. That 5-year financial forecast is gigantic. There's just no way we're going to be able to swallow that in those 5 years. You know, we'll have to look at that and continue to manage that. Some projects get pushed out, some projects move forward. Some we'll have to look at future bonds, et cetera. Major CIP projects that are funded in this year is Fire Station number 4 Park. There's also Lake Norman Charter Elementary going right there adjacent to that. We have the fire station sort of coordinating and building that park out. Tons of sidewalk projects, just like you see orange barrels all over town for road projects and intersections that will be ongoing for the next 10 years and probably beyond. Same thing with sidewalks, same things with greenways. You're going to see a shovel moving on sidewalks, roads, and greenways continuously. Another project in the CIP that, with the Burkdale approval, is a Townley connector. And there's some developer funds associated with that. If they move that project forward in the CIP, there's funds tied to various stages in there, and this is the first stage of moving this project forward. Gilead Road West obviously costs a whole lot more than $500,000. I wish it is more like $20 million or so. This is just additional funds needed for that project. Same thing with Huntersville Concord Road at Warfield Road. Warfield Road is just additional funds associated with that project. We've got, 26 different road projects going on in town, if that's the right number, in some shape, form, or fashion. So there's a lot of road projects going on in town. From an operating side, on the capital side, just the smaller items except for maybe the fire truck. These are just more of your, on the right side, I would say, are really more park and rec related. Left side, a little bit of everything like that. And I'm not going to read every one of these items. The first item, like firewall switches, more IT type stuff. Police cars, rolling stock, fire trucks, related to fire trucks and equipment air packs. Looking more at sidewalks and crossings. This is what the crosswalk beacons are, to various equipment replacement, trucks, salt spreaders, replacing fences at parks, to field groomers, to replacing various components on buildings in North Mac Park. So a whole host of operating capital items that are funded here. And then from Transportation Reserve and Grant Fund, we talked about these various funds at the beginning. As previous debt that's related to Highway 73 improvements, also various CIP projects that is funded with Transportation Reserve and the CIP, which is part of Gilead Road West funding, also Bud Henderson at Beatty's Ford Road, part of that funding. All the projects that we're working on, remember, road projects take forever, so we could be in various phases on those 26 projects I talked about, so those funds have to roll forward. So those projects we're working on, that we'll continue to work on, roll forward into FY '26. What does that $20 vehicle fee generate? That we talked about earlier. That generates $1 million that's specifically set aside for roads improvements and projects is what we use those fees for. And then also, there's a new grant fund proposed in this budget that we'll be spending towards replanting of trees. I'll give you a good example. So we're budgeting $100,000 this year. We have tree set-aside funds when developments come for us. They put funds into this account. We may have $400,000 or so in that account. But we're going to start using those funds. A good example would be once Gilead Road and the 21 improvements are done, you notice there's some grass islands out there. We're working on that now to work with DOT and a landscape architect to go back and actually do some plantings out there. That's just a small example that we'll be looking at all over town. No different than what we do in some of the roundabouts that, on 115 north and south. We're probably doing some improvements in the McCord roundabout. And then on the land development and Commerce Station, these two different funds on the Commerce Station, we have a joint business park, and the three towns are involved in that, Huntersville, Davidson, Cornelius. The key point here, this will be the first year that we will make a distribution back to the towns of Cornelius and Davidson. So that's a Commerce Station. We share in the expenses and revenue there. And so with the taxes that are generated in that park, it was the first one done in the state many years ago. What we'll be doing this year is actually distributing a check back to those towns for the taxes generated revenue for that park. From a land development standpoint, it's pretty flat here there. That's a new substation we're working on for electricities. Also, a big thing with electric, we're trying to loop the system, tie the system in together so that we build in redundancy in the system. So very capital intensive for the electric system. HFFA, we talked about that earlier. We are putting some funds set aside for that to make sure that we continue to operate Huntersville Family Fitness Aquatic Center. Keep going, Jackie. Last slide. I know I've been rambling a lot. Presented the manager's recommended budget tonight, 215 pages. Feel free to read that. If you read it, you probably do a better job than me because I don't know that I've read all 215 pages. Focus on the manager's message. That gives you sort of the highlights. Budget workshop tomorrow here, 4:30 to 7. This will all be posted on the website. Patty tells me May 8th. We will have a brew on the budget. Obviously, we invite the public to come to any of these meetings. Please come, give you feedback. There's a public, public hearing is May 20th, but there are two opportunities also to hear more about the budget on the brew on the budget on May 12th at 6 and on May 19th at 6 at Town Hall. And then we propose to adopt a budget June 3rd. I'm sure Ethan, who was up here earlier, is going to share all this information. And we hope that you'll show up and ask questions and give us your feedback. That's all I got, Mayor.
Any questions for Anthony, Board? Any questions for Jackie? Okay. All right, we'll move to item number 7, agenda changes, adoption of the agenda. Commissioner Walsh.
Yep, I'd like to make a motion to add a resolution in opposition to House Bill 765 as item 10D in other business.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And now can I have a motion to adopt the amended agenda?
I make a motion to adopt the amended agenda.
May I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8, consent agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Item 9A, conduct a public hearing on traffic calming measures on Devonshire Drive and Cockerham Lane. Is Laura here?
Yeah, staff would like to defer this until a later date, so I have a motion. Okay.
May I have a motion to defer item 9A?
Yes, I make a motion to defer the public hearing for traffic calming measures on Devonshire Drive and Cockerham Lane to May 20th, 2025 at Huntersville Town Hall at 6 p.m.
And may I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right. Item 9B, conduct a public hearing for petition R25-01 Alex Yards. Mr. James.
Thank you and good evening. So 2501 Alex Yards Conditional District Rezoning Proposal. And please enter my staff report into the record. So the basics of this rezoning request, you see on the screen in the hatched area is the site in question. That site currently is corporate business zoned. It is large lot, single family residential in use. The proposal is for an apartment development and for transit-oriented development residential. It's approximately 11.34 acres at the corner of Alexandriana and Mount Holly, Huntersville Road. So a little context about the area. You see the proposed TODR proposal there at the corner of those two intersecting streets. Adjacent to that and surrounding it is a future potential Mecklenburg County park. Beside that, to the east is a cemetery, and to the north, you've got some industrial uses with Beltway 77 and Suncap Industrial, which is underway with construction. You've got the approved Town 1, TODR, and E, and some other various districts as well, north of Hambright Road, and then the Cats the Cats Park and Ride there to the north, right on Hambright Road. And to the west, you've got some rural district, that is the critical watershed. So there's a small percent chance for development on those lots with 12 and 6% impervious surface. So getting into the proposed site, so the site there at the corner of Alexandriana and Mount Holly, Huntersville Road, the proposed site is for 9 apartment buildings equaling 320 units. 5 are facing Alexandriana and Mount Holly, Huntersville Road, while 4 are fronting on urban open space, which is a central green there in the very middle of the site. There is proposed 8 attainable housing units with 15-year terms. Staff is still working with the applicant on what those terms and details include. The required parking for this site would be 320 spaces. The applicants are offering 443. The plan does offer photovoltaic solar system, but it's not guaranteed. In the plan, the notes point to the buildings being set up for photovoltaic solar, but the panels themselves aren't actually proposed to be installed before the certificate of occupancy. In TODR, there's a 30% specimen tree save. This plan saves approximately 3%. We're still working with the applicants on some details within that area. So moving towards the intent of TODR within the zoning ordinance. So there's several items that the TODR tries to accomplish, and the TOD in general tries to accomplish. Some of those items include projects dividing into blocks and streets with open space throughout and interconnectivity, whether that be to adjacent properties or that integrated street system that is called out in the ordinance. a mix of land uses, so they're all feeding into each other. Some retail, restaurant, service, small employment type uses, live work type uses, things that are complementary to a transit-oriented development. It's looking for a pedestrian village type format, so think of it as you will as like a downtown type area where you're concentrated with your shopping, and then the residential areas branch out from there. And then also residential village within 10-minute walk of a transit station. So those items that I just called out, this plan is not consistent with in the ordinance. It is about a half-mile walk from this proposed site to the Cats Park and Ride. And mind you, some of that is doesn't have connections with sidewalks. So there are some parcels that are not modern development, so there's no sidewalks along that portion of Mount Holly Huntersville Road. So if those residences, and this was constructed, there wouldn't be a pedestrian walkway currently to get to the Park and Ride. Some areas of the plan that are consistent with the ordinance, it is within the half-mile catchment area of the transit stop. And you can see from the context map, you see a quarter-mile distance from the Cats Park and Ride and a half-mile distance in those buffer areas. So it is consistent with that. And within a TODR, they're really looking for density with housing. This plan proposes 28 units per acre, and the minimum average density is 15 dwelling units per acre. So moving on to the 2040 community plan and how this proposal ties in with that. There's several items that it does not support and a couple that it does. LU 1.1, it talks about utilizing the future land use map. As you see on the screen in that red area, that is the proposed site, and it is employment center called out. Those are uses like manufacturing, office parks, research centers, things like that. So this plan does not obviously meet that because it is solely apartments and multifamily residential. LU 8.3 talks about encouraging transit proximity close to Cats BRT. This site is not in close proximity as far as pedestrian way would be. Again, it's about a half mile, and there are some segmented areas without sidewalks. EOS 4 talks about encouraging tree preservation. As I talked to about earlier, this plan does save about 3% of the required 30% tree save. Still working on those numbers, but as it stands now, it is about 3% save area. And EV 1.2 is similar to LU 1.1, preserve areas suitable for business development. It's worth noting that that area to the left, all in green, which is west of this site, is all rural designated. Part of the reason for that is it is in the critical watershed, so a lot of that area cannot be developed for large industrial type sites or employment type uses. So this area proposed in that blue area on the screen, the town did rezone this whole area to reserve that for employment sector uses. And LU 8.2 encourage higher design. So that's similar to what I talked about previously with small lots, blocks, streets, connectivity. This is a one lot development, so it doesn't really connect to any other TOD district, and it does not also have that network of roads that a TOD calls for. Some of the areas that the plan does support allow intensity where infrastructure exists. So it is it is at the corner of two major thoroughfares, so that intensity is proper to be in that type of area. And then LU 10.1, promote attainable housing, something we are really promoting Now more than ever, it does offer 8 attainable housing units. So moving to staff's recommendation, this time staff is not considered in recommendation for approval for this proposal. And if you guys have any questions for me, I'm here. Otherwise, the applicants do have a presentation as well.
Commissioner Walsh?
Just one quick one for clarity. You said it's half a mile from a transit center, but there's no way to get to the transit center other than to drive, correct?
Correct, unless you are walking on the right-of-way without the sidewalk.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Bergsman?
Yeah, could you go over what would be allowed by right under the current zoning on the property?
Sure. So under corporate business, you're looking at things like manufacturing. You've got other industrial uses like warehousing, distribution, business parks, offices, research facilities. You've got some education, some vocational type school that you could have there by right. There's a litany of other uses, but they're all employment generating uses.
And one other, and I don't know, maybe it's a better question for the applicant, but do we know the percentage of the property that currently is like tree canopy? Like I saw in the report that they're only planning on saving 3 trees, but do we know how much of that property is wooded?
There's approximately 85 specimen trees on the site. There's other trees that are not considered specimen, 24 inches and above. There is, I don't know off the top of my head how many residential houses are on that site, so there's some cleared land as well. So I wouldn't call it like a deep forested site, but there are a considerable amount of specimen trees.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Quarles, you have a question?
Can you go to the slide where you have the little red light industrial use area?
Yes, sir.
Is this Alexandriana and Mount Huntersville Road?
That's Alexandriana Road, and that's Mount Holly Huntersville Road, adjacent to it, to the north.
So staff would prefer light industrial at that spot? Because what I'm getting at is, I know, I live in that area, there's apartments and houses in that area.
To the south, the city of Charlotte has some apartment units, but the town reserved this land in the last town rezoning for employment center uses, so corporate business. And so what the community plan is really trying to do is reserve those for employment generating uses. So with that being said, all that area to the left is critical watershed. You can't do employment generating uses there. And a lot of the other parcels to the north and some other various areas of town that are corporate business, there's not many left. So we're trying to reserve those areas for employment.
Yeah.
Commissioner Dumas?
The lot right next to so to the right, is reserved for park, right? Like for
Correct.
park space from the county? Okay, I'm not sure I had a question. I just wanted to clarify
Yeah, and there
that.
to the east of that is cemetery.
I have a park, but then I'm all about employment spaces. Like, I think it's really important to reserve spots for employment. I'm just curious if the land right next makes sense, I guess. I'm just thinking out loud. Thank you.
So,
That's helpful.
so one thing to mention with something similar to like a light industrial, you would think that doesn't make a lot of sense there, but one thing that does is in the ordinance, when you have that type of use, there's a prescribed and required 80-foot buffer on the right-of-way. So that off the top offers the tree canopy you're looking for tree save. So the proposed use, the buildings are allowed to be right at the street, and it's kind of built in. There's not a lot of room for additional tree canopy on there. That is one thing that an employment generating use does require, depending on the building type, is some required tree canopy.
questions? Okay, we'll have the applicant.
All right. Thanks, Jesse. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight, staff and commissioners and leadership team. Here to talk about Alex Yards. We're myself, a developer. I live in Davidson. We're local here. Don't live in Huntersville. Spend a lot of time and money in Huntersville. I'm really proud of some of the things that we're doing in Huntersville. I think this will give you a little better context. I know Jesse had a context map, but it was kind of just the Huntersville context. We wanted to show you a little better context for the whole area there. The black and white dashed line is the city of Charlotte, Huntersville border. The red uses are the more intense, higher density residential, whereas the orange is medium, yellow is low density, mostly again that Gar Creek watershed that just won't be developed. And then blue are those commercial business uses. Now, the 2040 comp plan, I'll talk about it, but it did not show a park in this area, so that's why you see that big swath of blue employment center through here, where in reality, we have our corner surrounded by the green park, and then the cemetery, which obviously is not going to be commercial business use. You can see here a little better that park that we were talking about earlier. Our site is surrounded by it. I feel like that's a much more appropriate use from a residential perspective, buffering up against a park as opposed to industrial. Particularly if you look at the population here, the southwest corner of Alexandriana and Mount Holly Huntersville is currently townhomes and apartments, multifamily. The image you see there on the southeast corner it's a quadplex. Taylor Morrison is under development on that project. And then in a sort of, let's say, not exceptional design, the apartment complex you see on the right-hand side there, south of the large industrial building, is already in place. So when you think of all those people trying to get from there to that future park, walking through an industrial site to me is sort of contrarian to what you would want to see there. The cemetery there, again in gray, and you can see the CB that has grown up around it. I want to add, you might look at the comp plan and say, why did this show all employment center when it was developed? The comp plan started that work in early 2019 and was adopted in late 2020. In the midst of that, at the end of 2019, the county bought 27 acres that surrounds this corner. That wasn't contemplated in the graphics and the maps that were in the comp plan. So one of the things that we feel like is the comp plan is a guide, but it is a general guide. It is not a specific guide. And it certainly didn't contemplate the cemetery, nor did it contemplate the future park. In that, at the time, town staff actually opposed City of Charlotte acquiring that land on the basis that it would diminish the value of this corner from an employment center perspective, because you need larger swaths, larger tracts, large employment opportunity centers. So it kind of really, it did take that away from this site. The county bought it anyways, and so we're kind of have to deal with the conditions on the ground today. This is a little bit about the park. They're a neighbor, so I have had a number of conversations with Bert Lynn, who is the Director of Capital Projects for Mecklenburg County Parks Department. And they've been really favorable to what we're looking to do. They recognize and feel the same way that a residential use makes more sense here than an industrial use. Clarks Creek Park is an example they provided that is down off of Hucks Creek Road in North Charlotte. Very active, very similar. It's the exact same number of acres. Splash pad dog park, walking trails, pickleball courts, a lot of really cool stuff, not just a piece of land. From a community plan perspective, again, you'll see the map on the left-hand side with those parcels numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just for reference. Number 1 is our site. Number 2 is the future park. Number 3 is a small piece that surrounds a creek there, a lot of topography to it. 4 is the cemetery, and 5 is that new industrial building. So you look at the map on the left, and then you look at the map in the middle, and you say, okay, what's really happened out here? It's not all blue. It's kind of blue, green, blue, gray, blue. And for that reason, we feel like a mix of uses, including residential, would make some sense here. I also want to call out the mixed-use node is the pink circle, the dashed line there. Those are areas that should have residential mixed in with commercial uses, employment centers. And I think, again, looking at the community plan, maybe that should have touched down to the intersection of Alexandriana and Mount Holly Huntersville, recognizing the mix of uses that are already in place there between a park, CB, and the cemetery. And I think you can start looking at the middle map, and you start look at the colors that are happening out there. It tells a little different story about what's really happening. Our whole site is within a half-mile catchment area. In TODR, it says you are generally within a half mile of a rapid transit station. So we meet that criteria, our entire site does. As far as being within a 10-minute walk of a rapid transit station, the measurement that you see, the green line here, is from our parcel in pink in the bottom left to the CAT station parcel top right. It's 0.49 miles. Generally accepted a 10-minute walk is half a mile or less. Semantics here, you could argue where is the actual pickup point for the bus. Maybe it's another 1/10 of a mile, or maybe it's 0.05 miles more. But I do feel like when you look at future development here, that industrial site, they are putting in a 10-foot multi-use path. The park obviously will put in its own 10-foot multi-use path. We're putting in 1,500 feet of 10-foot multi-use path around the entire site. So I do think we are adding connectivity in this area. And beyond that, I think it's important to note, and it's in bold in the ordinance. The ordinance says, nothing in these regulations shall preclude applications beyond a half-mile radius. Now, we are within a half-mile radius. I'm not saying we need that exception, but I think if logic dictated that you were putting a TODR outside of a half-mile radius, you would therefore then be outside of a 10-minute walk. So I don't think the ordinance contemplated that it is a requirement that you must, in all cases, be within that half-mile walk. A couple things, you heard Jesse talk about some things. I think there's a few other areas where the land use plan does support the project. In particular, and he did discuss it, but focusing intense development where infrastructure exists. I think it's really important to note, the site is less than a 5-minute drive to I-77 at Hambright, to Beatty's Ford and 485, and to 115 and 485, in addition to the CAT station. This is the southernmost point of Huntersville. The traffic that would be generated from here, they are going less than one traffic light in any direction to get to an interstate. We don't have anywhere left in Huntersville where you can put density. We do have people moving to Huntersville. We do need to have a place for them to live. I think this is a really appropriate place for that reason. A mix of uses. Again, I think if you look at Town 1 and the retail that will be up at Hambright, I think there's an argument to be made that the TODR district here has already been established with that 70-acre project. And that, yes, we are within a half mile, and that it's sort of the two could be read together. We did have a conversation with staff early in the process about putting a little commercial in, and it just really didn't feel like it made sense. I'd also point out in TODR, it reads within a 1/4 mile of the transit station, you may include up to 10,000 square feet of commercial for every 250 units. We are outside of that 1/4 mile. So I think there's a little misnomer that TODR is this real rich mix of uses, which is the terminology used in the ordinance, but the ordinance doesn't really back that up in terms of what it might allow you to do, in terms of limitations that are actually in place. We certainly don't meet the criteria of being a pedestrian village from a street and block perspective. We did spend time with staff looking at the site, trying to reflect that in our site plan, though. If you think about where a new street could come here, it would come through our site, through the park, to a cemetery, to an existing road. It just didn't make a lot of sense to add a street network here that the town would have to maintain. And I think when you see our site plan, we did try to factor that in to the way we designed it. Encourage transit-supported development. It actually indicates provide incentives to do development around these centers. We are within that half mile. It specifically says, consider ways to encourage transit-supportive development proximal to future CATS bus rapid transit stations. And I think it's important to note, as Jesse mentioned, it is a CATS park and ride. They are building 450 parking spaces. So this is not just everybody has to walk here. We want to try to keep people off the roads in general, but we want to grow in Huntersville. Whether you walk or you drive a half a mile and you're on a bus and you're taking traffic off the roads. This is our site plan. We do have all of our buildings around the perimeter fronting on the public street, requirement of a pedestrian village, TODR. Our other 4 buildings front on a kind of a central green, a large central green. If you look at the corner of Mount Holly, Huntersville, and Alexandriana Road, really excited to have worked with staff to generate that sort of view shed, kind of a keyhole urban green space there. So as you're entering Huntersville, you have a really attractive view up through the site, through this large central yard, and then the red arrows show that pattern of traffic going into the park then, pedestrian traffic, that is. The top view is what we're proposing at this corner. I think one thing, and Anthony and I talked about this a long time ago, you don't arrive in Huntersville anywhere where you see a sign that says, welcome to Huntersville. And this is the southern gateway to Huntersville. It's a major gateway. So we've included in our proposal to have that gateway, that welcome to Huntersville there you see in the top image. Again, accentuating that corridor view down through the site. You mentioned, someone asked what the likely uses would be in this area. If you look CB up and down Mount Holly, Huntersville Road, these are 2 buildings that exist today, have been developed recently, and that is what you would see here. The site is challenged, though, for it. Most of these kind of front the street, and you don't see the rest of the buildings. You're going to see all the way around this at this site. Again, I just kind of question, what would you want to see as you arrive to Huntersville? Some examples of other towns that welcome to. This is our central yard, kind of split into 2 parts. The northern section up along the clubhouse and the pool is more active. You'll see some things in here. These buildings front that green, so these are their front doors. They actually get to walk out and enjoy that sort of mini park before they walk to the actual park. There's a lot of multifamily communities around that do have, they have a little bit of this or a little bit of that. What we're proposing here is think about more of an old English gaming yard where you have all of it in one place, tied to the pool, tied to that clubhouse, kind of an active area. And then the southern portion would be more static, more a little quiet area, a garden yard, some fire pits, curvilinear paths and plantings. Some examples of some of those elements. Things are subjective. I will give staff a lot of credit. They challenged us with the site plan as we went through the process. And although they don't support the site, a lot of their fingerprints are on the site plan. I would argue that what we're proposing in this large central yard does represent exceptional design. I'd argue, look at the apartments south of here in Charlotte, there's nothing like that. And I think you'd be challenged to find anything like that anywhere in Huntersville. So I think that is an area where we do excel. We talked, so our group is also involved in Town 1, and really proud of the fact that 2 years ago when we put that project together, we were the first multifamily project, I believe, and Brian, maybe correct me, that voluntarily offered up attainable housing units in a project in Huntersville. And I think if you look at submittals that have happened over the last 2 years, most projects have included attainable housing. Obviously here, we're also going to propose that, but really happy with that trend. We have 4 units at 80%, 4 units at 100%, so 8 units in the project. And generally, the people who can afford to live there would be first responders, healthcare workers, teachers. It gives a guaranteed sort of rent control. I would also add that multifamily is the least expensive type of housing that we can build in our community. So when we talk about attainable housing or affordable housing, we talk two things. We talk about deed restricted, but we also just talk about, are we building $1 million homes, or are we building somewhere where people can afford to live? And again, in this area, I think it's appropriate. And again, I'll defer to Brian Anthony, but I think we are the first project in Huntersville to propose installed active solar as part of a project. And I want to correct Jesse. Our clubhouse, we are proposing installing active solar. So that would be live. We're proposing 20 kilowatts of power in kind of in a architectural focal point. So if you see the bottom right image, instead of just scattered panels like you see on houses that have been converted, we're looking at a way architecturally to make it something that's a point of emphasis. We're not trying to hide from it. In addition to that, though, and I think maybe where the confusion came in, we are proposing that all the residential buildings be built what we're calling solar ready. We're working with a solar consultant. Conduits run from the attics to the electrical rooms, making sure there's that chase for future power connectivity, and then making sure the roof and trusses are engineered to support solar panels in the future. Ideally, when our regulatory environment is a little more predictable, our political environment maybe a little more predictable, we'd like to see Duke Energy maybe a little more amenable to putting power back into the grid. But we think the same way 2 years ago we put the first affordable project together, I think having the first live active solar project in a multifamily community can be meaningful and really lead that conversation. From an economic impact perspective, there's a widely accepted program called M-Plan that is used to size. Are these numbers perfect? No, they're not. But if you look at it relative to other projects, it gives a really good view of what happens here. First off, there's the construction itself, about $74 million in spending. During that time, though, there's another $300,000 in indirect. Plumber's got to run to Lowe's and grab something. There's also another $240,000 in induced spending. That's, I'm going out and buying lunch, or I'm stopping in and grabbing a gift from the workers who are in that area. It's about $84,000 in actual tax benefit to the town during that construction period. The residents themselves, you know, we're building 300 and some units. There's going to be a lot of people living in there who are spending money in our community. About $9 million in labor income, $16 million in spending in the community. And the big one here, and you guys talked about property taxes and budgets, that property today generates about $3,300 a year in tax revenue to the town. We're projecting about $180,000 a year. Looking at Brookson Flats, Waterford, and Ardmore as examples, Brookson really being the best example because it's a recent construction and it had a sale, and usually you get an increase in basis, and unfortunately or fortunately, you pay more tax when that happens. I will say, relative to the CB use, there's 4 or 5 good examples in this area, Mount Holly, Huntersville, Hambright. They generate properties that are about twice the size acreage, generate about $25,000 to $50,000 a year in tax to the town of Huntersville. So there's a significant economic advantage to the town also here. And just kind of, you know, wrapping things up, I think this, if you step away from all the land use, what do you want to see here? When you arrive in Huntersville, what do you want to see here? What would you want to see around a park? What would you want to see for our community to say you've arrived, you've left Charlotte, and you've arrived in Huntersville? I think residential is better than the industrial, and I think that our project is an exceptional version thereof. I think we do, from a land use plan, meet the criteria for the half-mile catchment area of TODR. I do think that when you look at this on a granular level, while staff is somewhat, they have to follow the rule book. The rule says this. Our leadership has the ability to interpret. And I think if you look at the 2040 community plan, that map that Jesse showed and that I showed, that shows us as all employment center, when in reality it's just not the case. I think this is an opportunity to correct that and look at the specific use on the specific piece of property that fits here. Certainly the attainable housing, the solar are two pieces that we're excited about, and the economic impact of this. And I think if you look at this area in general, there is already a mix of uses here. I think this is another use that would be complementary and really appreciate everybody taking the time to come out and listen, and certainly willing to take questions.
Commissioner Rivers?
Thank you for your presentation on your project that you have presented with us, to us this evening. So in your proposed project, you said 8 units would be set aside for attainable housing or affordable housing. Out of 320, why 8? Why was 8 that number?
Yeah, so from an economic perspective, you maybe first say, why doesn't anybody just build these, right? And it's because these are below market rate. So, you know, as a development community, we are not able to build these units and have them be profitable. Each unit, we project about $125,000 per unit as a cost to the project. So 8 units is about $1 million. We feel like it's a pretty healthy number when you start looking at it that way. And for the project to move forward, we have to raise equity and financing. And we have to raise equity and financing against the cost of those units, telling someone that, but we're really not going to pay for them with the rents that we're going to collect.
And my follow-up to that, with your project and the affordable housing units, will they be consistent with the proposed project as far as the apartments are concerned, or will it be a
Absolutely.
separate entity?
No,
or
it's
will
a
they all-
mix of units. Someone moves out of a unit, they might move into a different unit, no difference in finishes, fit, feel, and it'd be a mix of, you know, if we have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, there'd be a mix
Okay.
of those.
And the same as far as the solar options, as far with the solar?
So the
system?
solar, the clubhouse itself will have active installed solar, but then the individual buildings will have that solar ready. That so if the owner of the project at some point in the future decided to add solar power to those buildings, it would power the whole building.
Okay. And then the proposed project, where is it in conjunction with the graveyard site? I know that we.
Yeah. So.
Specific.
So if you look at our site, the yellow buildings there at the corner, the green outline is the future park. The black outline is the cemetery property, and then you have the industrial to the right of it. So it still provides, I mean, the park will be a much larger buffer to the cemetery than we might disturb.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hunt?
Can you help me understand why you're saving so few trees?
Yeah, so I'll say a couple things. It's a small site, and I think whether there was a CB use there or a multifamily use, you're going to see the developer have to participate in the tree mitigation bank. If you look at like the cost we just talked about with affordable housing, to put those units in, if we said, hey, you know, we're gonna basically remove a building, the economics of that are pretty devastating to the project. One of the things that I've kind of committed, I guess, personally to is trying to find a better place and a better way to replant these trees than just paying into the tree bank. I'd love to find specific uses or specific areas of town where there is a need for that. I'll add to it, there are a number of trees that we will try to save that don't meet the technical criteria for tree save in the project. So if you're going to count a specimen tree as a tree saved tree, we have to put up, we can't disturb anything around the drip line of the tree and outward of that 5 feet. There's a number of places in the site where we have a tree that, you know, we're showing disturbance 10 or 15 feet into that, you know, 80-foot circle. That tree is almost certain to survive, but it doesn't meet the criteria from a town's perspective to call that a saved tree. So hence we're left mitigating.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that explanation. Staff, is there a way that we could look into partnering with Mr. Geisler to plant the trees in a specific location rather than just putting it in the tree bank?
Brian's whispering.
I know Brian and I have chatted some about it. I think we need to chat with Emily to see if that's possible to do that. I don't know if we've come up with a resolution on that yet.
Can I speak for you, Brian? Brian's saying, or I'll let Brian maybe speak for him.
that is something that is agreed upon by the board and the applicant, that could be a condition of the application.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Dumas?
So you mentioned that it doesn't make sense to do retail. I was going to ask you, would you consider adding retail? So help me understand why it doesn't make sense.
So I'd say a couple things. One, if you look at location, candidly, there's no other retail around here, and usually you need a draw of, a collection of things to become a destination. I think the amount of retail that's going in, less than a half mile up the road is another reason. If we were trying to market the space, I think it would be very difficult to market it. And then access-wise, we're a right-in, right-out off of Mount Holly Huntersville Road. And we're full access off Mount Holly Huntersville, but a right-in, right-out off Alexandriana. So when you start to think about like where would you put that and where would the parking for that be in a primarily residential village, it's a tough sell. And I'd rather, I could tell you that we're going to put 3,000 square foot of retail in, and I could spend 5 years trying to lease it out, and I could give it to the local Kiwanis Club or the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. I'd rather tell you we're going to put some affordable housing in and have the dollars that would go being spent into an underperforming retail space go into something that's more valuable.
Okay. Can you look at the site, the overhead on the site plan? Yes, so I was looking at your really beautiful pictures of people walking around and the courtyard and everything, and what did you call it, like the vision into?
Kind of a garden yard, like a central yard, or
Yeah, but you referred to it like as people are coming into Huntersville, like that's what they're going to see.
oh, the corridor, yeah,
Corridor,
the view shed.
okay. Yeah.
Gateway.
But you have a bunch of parking right there. I would imagine, I don't know the elevation, but I would imagine if people are parking right after that first little green space, that they'd block the view. And
Yeah, so actually, staff had commented on that, and this is not the most current version of the plan. Jesse could either pull his up, or I could just tell you, you see that eyebrow, the kind of the rounded parking area? Mm-hmm. That's now gone in our plan. So the green is larger, and there's just the 2 rows of parking there instead of being sort of like 3.5.
do you think that it's enough to be able to see the pretty green corridor, or will it get blocked?
No, I think it's still pretty significant view in through there. It's a, to me, I do think it is. We're not showing street trees planted along the 10-foot multi-use path for that reason. We're showing landscaping there, but just in front of that little view area to kind of, again, further accentuate that view into the site. And I think it's the view into the site. I do think it's also, though, the view just from the road. Looking at that sort of entrance and the arch and the way that the people can walk through there, drawing people into the site and ultimately up through the park. I think it's a combination of both that you're talking about.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner, no? Okay. I actually had a question. This site location, does it fall within the zone for the CATS microtransit?
I don't know. That's a great question.
Okay. Well,
Not off the top of my head, no.
okay, we'll find out then.
Yeah, we can certainly dig in on that.
Okay. Commissioner Bergsman?
Yeah. Hey, I just have one question left. Most of mine have been answered. In regards, I think the TOD would be a little more palatable to me if, and maybe this is two-part for both staff and you as well, I'd be curious to know if there was an option, if the town would explore extending a sidewalk up to the CATS, actually not just a sidewalk, but a multi-use path, if that's something that you would be willing to contribute funds towards. But I guess first I would need to know from staff if that's even a good idea.
You to answer, or do you want staff to answer?
Well, you can answer it if it's feasible for you, and then I'll answer it. So yeah, that could certainly be a condition that can be added to the plan if you all decided and the applicant agreed to it, to connect all the way to BRT. There would obviously be right-of-way needed and things like that. So there'd be some engineering involved and figuring out, you know, the price of that. But I can let Ben speak on that at a financial.
Yeah, I think there's probably three pieces of that, right? So one, you know, could we work together with the town? Absolutely. Could we acquire the right-of-way? Maybe. You know, Anthony, I don't know how your right-of-way acquisition went along Hambright, and fortunately, I think there's only one remaining occupied home on that section, so it probably would be a little lower bar, but you might be able to speak, because you've had that recent experience from a right-of-way acquisition perspective.
I mean, they all differ, you know. You want $1 million for your property, and the next person wants 100,000, so it just varies. Some projects easier than others, but nobody's giving it to you.
Yeah. And then I think the third question, you know, I think we could certainly contribute some funding to it. Could we do it ourselves? I don't think so, but I think we could certainly contribute funding towards it.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, like if there could be a commitment that if the town would decide to pursue, you know, sidewalk or multi-use path, if you would also be willing to commit, or, you know, applicant,
Yeah.
your company, to commit to funding some of that.
I think definitely. And I, you know, I think when we look at it, the industrial complex does have a 10-foot multi-use path across the front of it that's going to be constructed, and I think the park is obviously going to construct that piece, so it's probably not quite as daunting as it might look if you just look from point A to point B.
Questions, board? Okay. We do have
Very much.
Thank you. We do have a handful of public comments for this hearing that we will begin with. Once we get can we get our public comment slide up there? As you note that we have a few new faces, and so I just want to review real quickly our public comment policy. Please state your name. Speakers have 3 minutes to speak. Please don't expect the board to respond directly. We don't respond during public comment period. And please keep your comments in the respectful language area that we require that in this room. And we will now begin with Randy Rabinow. I hope that I... Mr. Rabinow, you have 3 minutes.
My name's Randy Rabinow, and my wife and I live on Kearns Road in Huntersville. And I moved here in 1995, so I've seen a lot, as most everybody has. And I'm very familiar with the site around Alex Yard's proposed site. Actually, me and my son used to tromp around in the woods down around there quite some time ago. But I think Alex Yard's fits that site. And I know a lot of people come up from Charlotte. Can't remember the name of the road, North Perimeter or something, that comes right up, shoot right up. So I'm for it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Elaine Benjamin. Ms. Benjamin, you have 3 minutes. You can just go right over there. And then just speak into the microphone. Just pull that microphone down so you can speak into it. There you go.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We're the Benjamin family. We've been up in this area for like 23 years, and we've grown with this area, and we've built our family on traditional grassroots foundation, and we're very thankful to be here right now. What we see with our property on Mount Holly, Huntersville Road, is it's an excellent location with a great opportunity to provide wonderful service, community service for the residents that live there. And this was the first time I got to see the real proposal, and it really looks grand, it looks wonderful. It looks like it would really serve the needs of the community. And to know that the park is right there, right behind, that's just awesome. So I know that living down here in Charlotte, that access to the highway is like a mandatory thing to get to work. That was awesome. I was a nurse for many years down in Mercy Hospital, and getting to work was a trip. So I'm so excited to see this coming into fruition, hopefully. I hope that you agree and see our vision.
Thank you, ma'am. Joseph Portnova, you have 3 minutes.
Not very good at public speaking, so I wrote mine down. Good evening, members of the town and fellow residents. I appreciate the opportunity to propose the rezoning from commercial business to multifamily use in Huntersville. This project has the potential to bring tremendous benefits to our community, and I want to highlight a few key reasons why supporting this change is a smart move for our town. Number one, addressing housing demand. Huntersville continues to grow, attracting new residents and businesses alike. As housing costs rise, many individuals and families struggle to find affordable options. Rezoning for multifamily use allows to provide more attainable housing opportunities, ensuring that we accommodate diverse income levels while maintaining the character and vibrancy of our town. Number two, supporting local businesses. An increase in residential density brings economic benefits. More residents means more customers for local shops, restaurants, and service providers. This shift will help sustain and grow small businesses, creating a thriving local economy that benefits everyone. Number three, providing workforce housing. Many essential workers, teachers, police officers, and healthcare professionals struggle to find affordable housing near their workplaces. Multi-family housing can help address this issue by offering cost-effective living options, allowing those who serve our community to live within it. Number four, optimizing land use and planning for the future. Certain commercial areas may no longer serve their intended purpose. Rezoning for residential use ensures that we maximize land efficiency, create vibrant neighborhoods, and align with Huntersville long-term community goals. This proposed rezoning represents an opportunity to enhance Huntersville's livability, economic vitality, and sustainability. By supporting this transition, we foster a balanced approach and development that meets the needs of current and future residents. I encourage the town board and community members to consider these advantages and work together to create a Huntersville that is inclusive, thriving, and forward-thinking. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Ryan Flores, you have 3 minutes.
Hey, my name is Ryan Flores. I am a resident right here in Huntersville, about 400 meters away in the edge of Vermilion. I am a business owner on Mount Holly, Huntersville, right there. And I was actually part of the selection committee for the artists of the park and ride right there. As one of 3 that selected the artist that's going to design the park and ride building. So I feel like my fingerprints are a little bit all over that area. And I can't really speak for the Public Arts Commission. I'm not here to do that, but being part of those meetings and as a active member of that, I really like to hear what Ben said about the gateway in our community. You know, if we could be able, we've recently worked with the builder right here behind Discovery Place, and maybe even extending our sculptor that we just put in 2024. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. That being said, as I've been a member of the Arts Council, or our Arts Commission since 2023, we have never worked with one of the builders of these big commercial properties, but we have worked with the builders to extend the beauty of our community. So I think it's a great idea, and as a business owner right there on that corner, I support it fully. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. Brad Mintz, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Brad Mintz. Me and my wife have lived off of Hambright Road, right near Mount Holly. We've lived there about 6 years. Be honest with you, it went from a nice little quiet road on Hambright to the warehouse heaven. So, so we were a little, frustrated to kind of see that start happening. And when I heard about this project, I fully supported it, especially, once I heard about the 27-acre park. I just, as the commissioner stated too, it was kind of, didn't understand where you'd have a commercial park or a park within a commercial area. So I just think, to take advantage of that park, have young families living there, create more of a home area instead of just completely filled with warehouses. It just makes total sense to me. Just like the developer Ben said, coming on that area, it's a great location to get onto the interstate. And last thing I want to see is another box store there or a warehouse, or even, since it hasn't been decided what it could be, my fear is it's just going to be something nondescript, plain building. That's what's going to help you or welcome you to Huntersville. So fully support this. I think it'd be great for families. I think that park would just be amazing for young families moving in there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Before we proceed with our next public hearing, I inadvertently lumped in our general public comments with the public hearing comments, and so I'm going to call Christine Wolak. You have 3 minutes, Chris.
My name is Christine Wolak, and I live on the Holbrook side of Vermillion. Before I moved to Huntersville, I lived in an awesome townhouse community. I'd like to tell you what made it so awesome, architecturally speaking, in case any of the developers in the room want to include this in their future plans. The first thing was that there were one-story units in addition to the two-story units. And this allowed seniors to live in a community with lawns and with mixed age ranges instead of staying in a house that's too big or having to move into an apartment complex or a senior living complex. There were at least 3 different floor plans for the two-story units. The one-stories were just mirror images of each other. They would be on one side of a building. Each building was either 3, 4, or 5 units, so it was very mixed as far as what you would see when you're looking down the street. Each unit had a patio or deck, depending on the ground elevation, and there were 4 different external paint colors. So nothing outrageous: beige, tan, gray, and very light green. The road was not all right angles. The neighborhood didn't look cookie cutter or prefab. It looked like a neighborhood. Last but not least, not only did each unit have an attached 2-car garage, but also there was room to park in the driveway. Revolutionary for townhouse complexes, if you've ever seen them. Many people left a car or even 2 in the driveway and used the garage for storage. And then with the cars in the driveway, it felt more like any other neighborhood that you would go to. People didn't disappear into their garage if they parked in their driveway. They said hi to their neighbors. So room for parking in the driveway, single 4 units for those that can't do stairs, and buildings that are different enough that you don't end up walking into someone else's living room by mistake. These are the things that made my Silvergate community an awesome townhouse community, and I hope other developers will consider this when planning their next project. Make your townhouse community a neighborhood and keep Huntersville homey. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joe Sailors. You have 3 minutes, Joe.
Joe Sailors, 9332 Westminster Drive, just down the street from the project that they were talking about. And by the way, there's 5 home sites on that piece of property. 2 of them are lived in right now. The other 3 people have moved on, and I guess that's why it's being sold. I'm trying to get staff to put the 7-Eleven station on Mount Holly Holmesville Road and Beatty's Ford back on the agenda. our attorneys and your attorney has been doing emails or texts back and forth, according to my attorney, but haven't actually talked to each other yet. So Jeff's guy is trying to get hold of you. We made a significant change. The Houstons, who own the property next door, we're not going to include it in the property because they do not want to come to the board and ask the board to downzone their property back to what it was in 2008. So because we're reducing the size of the property by almost 50%, that's a significant change and could constitute it being able to be brought back onto the board. Ironically, the Overhill project on Beatties Ford Road, the board allowed rezoning of that property when Mr. Bowman didn't sell all of the existing property to the new developer. So the board approved the property for the new zoning, and it wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. So I'm asking that staff and the manager people get together and the attorney and see fit to put it back onto the board.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, thank you. Good grief. We are going to proceed with our public hearings. We are on to item 10C, conduct a public hearing on petition R24-07, a request by the property owners to rezone 106 acres. Mr. Priest.
Good evening. Thank you very much. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce this for everyone, R2407, Everett Keith Residential. So this is the public hearing for a conditional district rezoning that's located to the east of Hambright Road and just north of Eastfield Road there at the end of Dogwood Lane. Rezoning is from transitional residential. You see the site there hatched. Transitional residential to neighborhood residential, and it should be conditional district there. What's proposed is a single family attached and detached residential development. So it's townhomes essentially and cottage and smaller lot single family residential homes. Traffic impact analysis was required, and it was the results and the mitigation was accepted by Huntersville Engineering. Here's a context map that I probably should have labeled a little better, but I'll go ahead and draw a little bit. So the site is here, right? So this is the site proposed. To the west is Brighton, and so you've got residential development and industrial development here, and then Walmart is just to the southwest. There, and to the south of the proposed development here is another foundry warehouse distribution facility there. And to the south and east is the Dogwood Estates single-family neighborhood that's been there for quite some time there. I'll clear that, or try to, or if Larry can clear it for me, I would greatly appreciate it. There we go. Thank you very much. So that's kind of the context of the site. So getting into the rezoning plan a little bit, it's a 259 lot subdivision. It is on about 106 acres in total, about 3 tracts of land that you put together. And so as I mentioned, there's 4 home types proposed, and I'll break those down individually on the site plan just for clarification. So to the north of the proposed Hambright Road extension there, you have 76 attached townhomes. So townhomes as you would normally expect to see them. The next type of home is a cottage detached unit. So these are detached. They're not townhomes, even though the lots are very small. They're about 25-foot wide, but they are detached. So they're calling them the cottage use there. And then the next type is more of a standard single-family detached unit, 50 plus, just a little bit wide feet wide. And then the fourth type are some larger lots, 100-foot wide detached lots, closer to the Dogwood Estates neighborhood. Some more highlights to think about as we're going through the discussion of the application. The application does have the consideration of dealing with some impediments. So if you look here, we've got a Duke Power right-of-way coming here. You've got another one coming through here. And then again, you have the streams that are coming through here. So there is some challenges associated with dividing the parcel. And if you could clear that, please, for me. Thank you very much. Hambright Road extension is going through the middle of the property. The applicants have proposed to build the portion of it that you see just south of the townhomes is Hambright Road extension. So the portion that you see would be built, and then they would give a payment in lieu of. They've offered voluntarily to give a payment in lieu of for the rest of the construction of the thoroughfare through the width of their property, and essentially over the stream. So that's a condition that they're proposing. Townhomes to the north will front both the existing thoroughfares on Everett Keith Road, Hambright, but also on urban open space. There's an area up north of the Duke Power right-of-way that would front completely on open space and have alley access back to the public street. The property is, as mentioned, adjacent to and connecting to the Dogwood Lane neighborhood or the Dogwood Estates neighborhood to the south at Forest Lake Avenue and Dogwood Lane. So that is required by the zoning ordinance. So any subdivision that is adjacent to a neighborhood, our ordinance does require connectivity to stubs, which Dogwood Lane does, and so that would be required. We're working with NCDOT and asking what type of improvements are going to be required. The applicant is doing the same, so we can get into that discussion later, but some improvements on Dogwood Lane are expected by NCDOT. A highlight of the proposal is highly programmed open space. So this is a snapshot of their open space sheet that they submitted with the application. If you look to the southeast, there is a pond on the property, on a 10-acre piece of property there. The applicants are proposing to dedicate that land as a public park, which would be significant and a unique aspect to any subdivision that's coming in. This one specifically because it has a pond that could be used for fishing. We've discussed that with our Park and Recreation Director, and there is a lot of interest in potentially having that to be a public park and to be able to have people come and make use of that. That is currently on the Park and Recreation Committee's agenda for May to make a recommendation to the town board on whether or not to take that dedication. So that's a unique aspect of it. And separate of that, many very unique ways. There's basketball courts, there's playgrounds, there's butterfly gardens. They're very specific in the programming of the open spaces that are there. And so that's a unique aspect to keep in mind as well. 8 affordable units are currently proposed for the site in a specific location, and we'll discuss that in a moment as well. Site plan considerations to discuss. There is a modification proposed for buffer disturbance. So that is to disturb several sections as shown in the site plan of buffer and then to replant. So that's a modification. There is no modification for attached units in the NR zoning district. You can have up to 30% attached, and they're right at 29 point something or other. So they do not need a modification for that. Staff is continuing to work with the applicant on a few issues that we'd like to see changed for consistency purposes with small area plans and the 2040 plan. internal connectivity to the site. Their setbacks or build-to lines for some of the townhomes and cottage units are larger than we'd recommend. Context-sensitive design to dogwood. Again, we mentioned the larger lot subdivision to the southeast, and we'll get into that discussion when we talk about the Eastville Road Small Area Plan. The greenway is not being accommodated for at this time, and there's some conditional notes that we'd recommend changing, and feasibility verification on utility connection is being requested by staff as well. So the 2040 plan, there's a lot on the screen, but I wanted to break this down a little bit. The overall density proposed for the development is 2.44 units per acre. So we ask, well, what does the 2040 plan recommend in regard to the density? Well, it's not a clear-cut statement because the 2040 plan kind of bisects the property in two. To the west, the 2040 plan recommends moderate density, which is 1 to 3 units per acre. And then on to the eastern side, that is closer to the Dogwood Estates neighborhood, it recommends an average density of 1.5 units an acre. So that's your general TR maximum intensity there and density in the residential edge character area. So how does this application stack up? On the bottom right, I tried to do a rudimentary plan just to show the different aspects of the plan and the densities. So west of that stream that kind of bisects that tract of property, it's about 2.8 units per acre, and to the right is about 1.5 units per acre. So from the 2040 plan perspective, the densities are right in the sweet spot, if that makes sense. Now, getting a little bit more zoomed in, however, this property is located in the Eastfield Road Small Area Plan planning zone. So when you think of the 2040 plan, it's a little bit zoomed out, it's a little bit more comprehensive. I guess they call it a comprehensive plan, right? So the small area plan zooms in and has very specific recommendations. And so this is one of those areas where it differs a little bit from the 2040 plan. So here it's broken down, and I've highlighted the track from the Eastfield Road Small Area Plan and highlighted it in red. So this one again, it kind of breaks up in 3 different groups, A, B, and C, in the planning zone 1. And so I'll just go through. So when we're looking at the C portion, when we're looking at north of Hambright Road, the recommendation is to keep the TR zoning designation and maintain it until such time Hambright Road extends to Eastfield Road, at which time probably, as far as development goes, the game changes, so to speak. And a lot more development would probably be had and would be reasonable. So until that time, the Eastfield Road Small Area Plan says, hold on to what the zoning is. So the red arrow kind of indicates an inconsistency with the Eastfield Road Small Area Plan. The A portion, so the portion to the south that's proposed to be intensified with cottage units, so the recommendation from the Small Area Plan says essentially mixed use. You've got commercial, you've got residential, you've got apartments, you know, all that stuff would work. That's your intensity area that's immediately adjacent to Brighton. So Brighton's very intense, and then so the part A is, well, you can intensify that because it has a relationship with Brighton. That makes sense. The further away from it you go to the east, the less dense you are. So that's kind of the theme that we're running into. So the A portion, it checks the box. So we got a green arrow there. B, south of Hambright Road, east of Everett Keith, toward the Dogwood Estates, the recommendation is to keep the density low and to try to keep the character of Dogwood Estates. So it mentions approximately 1 unit per acre density there. So with the 1.5, it's not terribly far off, but it's still higher. And the lot sizes are pretty significantly different. So that one gets a red arrow and has inconsistency at this time from a staff perspective. Now, we go back to the 2040 plan in regard to not just density, but the policies, right? So looking through the application, ones that we think support it, 1.1, 5, and 10 land use policies. Again, the map density for the 2040 plan is right on. You have infrastructure there. They're building a portion of Hambright or proposing to build a portion of Hambright, and that's a thoroughfare. Everett Keith is a thoroughfare. They have access out to Eastfield Road and to 115 to Old Statesville Road. So we think it fits that. And then policy LU10, encourage a diversity of housing options. There's lots of different sizes in there to choose from. So they're meeting that expectation as well. Opportunities, ones that we're still working with the applicant on, connectivity for pedestrians and vehicles, not necessarily external, but internal, where there's a lot of one-way in, one-way out alleys. The alleys don't connect very well. Segments of the development are kind of separated from each other. So we're trying to work with the applicant to perhaps find some environmental sensitive footpaths or nature trails that can cross the streams and to interconnect the development a little bit better so it's interwoven at a higher degree. Design standards for flexibility, we're still working through those. The parkland dedication and the open space is a great one. But again, affordable housing and internal connectivity and greenway accommodation is something that is lacking at this point. The affordable housing aspect, they are offering 8 units, but I'll go back and just note real quick that the units are specific in one location. So they're in the townhome development just north of Hambright Road on the units that front on the internal street there. There are 8 proposed condo units that would be a little bit different than the rest of the development. Staff is recommending that the affordable units be dispersed throughout the development, so they all look the same. They're not in one location, and you can't tell one from the other. So that would be the recommendation there. So we're still working with the applicant on that. Protect existing housing stock. So this kind of blends in with the discussion of the Eastfield Road Small Area Plan. The recommendation is to have lower density in the area in the 1B yellow area. And the applicants do have 100-foot lots, 9 of them, that are immediately adjacent to Dogwood Estates, but very quickly go to 50-foot lots in a close proximity to a home or two from the Dogwood Estates. So staff is recommending to better fit with the character of Dogwood Estates to extend the 100-foot lots further north toward the mini traffic circle that you saw on the west coming in there. And then that would also bring that density down just a touch to meet the recommendation of the Eastfield Road Small Area Plan. So that would be a staff recommendation at this time. And then policy LU9, we're working on with the applicants of clarifying their notes in regard to front porches and recessed garages. Context-sensitive design is also based on traffic calming. When you're connecting to existing neighborhoods, staff pays a lot of attention to that. In the highlight, the traffic circle in blue, that would, people coming from the north, that's going to make them slow down before they get to Golden Hawk Trail. And right at Golden Hawk Trail, the applicants are proposing to put a raised pedestrian crosswalk across Dogwood Lane in order to slow people down where they're going there, when they're going through that intersection. Then further to the south, Forest Lake Avenue, we're working with NCDOT to see what we can do on those intersections because those are state roads once you get out of the neighborhood and you get on those existing roads. So it's going to be dependent upon what NCDOT will allow for traffic calming measures there. But staff is working on that, and that's current, and the applicant is working on that, and it's a work in progress. So right now, staff supports, again, that kind of step down intensity from Brighton west to east as you go, with excellent design, even with the recommendations of the Eastfield Road Small Area Plan being the west side. It kind of makes sense when they're building out Hambright Road to connect that more with Brighton than you do to the east. But to the east and with the design issues that we're currently working on with the applicant, the staff doesn't support at this time, but we're still discussing. So that'll conclude my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Walsh?
Thank you. I guess I read through the staff report, and there are a lot of notes and things, but I've got a couple questions. First one, it says no phasing plan has been submitted. Can you help me with that in terms of?
Yes, sir. So, looking at the site plan as a whole, right? You've got connections, you've got open space, you've got infrastructure and roads. But the reality is, when a subdivision comes in and actually constructs, it's usually not at the same time. It's phased out. Some entrances are put in the beginning, some entrances are put in later, and some open spaces are put in later. So what staff is asking to do on a conceptual level, not on a lot-by-lot basis, but just understand what entrance is going to go where, what infrastructure is going to be put in when, and because the time element matters. For instance, of course, we wouldn't want, and this is not something the applicant's going to do, I'm sure, but we wouldn't want everybody going on Dogwood Lane to get into the neighborhood for phase one being, the ones to the east. That wouldn't make sense. They wouldn't do that. But at the same time, we want to see that, right? We want to be able to see the timing because it matters. And so that's the request for a phasing plan, to understand what connections are going to be where and to make sure those are sequential and logical in the development of the site.
Gotcha. So that may tie in my second question. So there was something, modification of conditional subdivision note, and it says in here, I guess some changes were made. However, the subdivision note still allows a potential third party to purchase a portion of the subdivision and rezone it without the owner or other portion of the subdivision's permission. So kind of to your point there on Dogwood Lane, it sounds like they could start some projects over here, say to the west, and then sell that portion that's off of Dogwood Lane and orphan that, so to speak, by not connecting. I mean, can you help me with that?
Yes, so that's again, staff, we kind of deal with worst case scenarios. A lot of time they're not the worst case scenarios, but we check and verify. So, and that's the intent of amending the conditional note, because as the note is written, that's exactly right. If the developer sells off to a third party and they start selling homes, and then the owners of the homes who purchased the lots on the other side, they have use of open space, they have connections, but then the third party says they want to rezone the property, they remove connections, they remove open space, so now these property owners are being affected. So it's staff's recommendation that they should be able to go to those property owners to sign on to that rezoning, to be able to all be on the same page, rather than just having that done to them. It should be with them.
Gotcha, just one more here. There were, I think in a couple places, issues with build-to lot lines. I think there were, I can see down here on the left side, you've got like a road. Obviously, the homes are fronting the road, but it looks like there was some fronting Hambright as well as Everett Keith. In fact, I think in one place it talks about the lots maybe like 10 feet above the street line.
Yes, sir. So the units that front proposed now on Hambright Road. So the walkability, street frontage relationship is a big element of the Huntersville Code and the 2040 plan. So usually what that means is the units are very walkable, that you push the buildings closer to the street, you have a sidewalk that goes right to the street, and it becomes a function of the home, especially in urban areas, right? An example, I do have just a couple pictures I can show to give an example. So here's a picture of some developments of townhomes and narrower lot development that are on a thoroughfare, but you see they have a very close proximity to the street. Each one has a sidewalk going to the street and are very usable and functional. And you know, how fortuitous, someone was walking actually in front of the picture when I took the picture. That worked. So, and that's the intent. That encourages that. When you pull those buildings back, you're less likely to use them, and then it becomes somewhat of an awkward connection from the street to the house with long sidewalks that parallel each other, and it becomes an awkward design. So staff's recommendation is to put a cap on that and push the buildings a little bit closer. The issue that the applicant is dealing with on the Hambright lots, there's a lot of grade because, again, they're dealing with streams in the area. So yes, those units are about 8 to 10 foot higher than the street, and so you're hurting that frontage relationship. You're hurting that walkability. And on the Everett Keith side, you'll notice on, I'll circle it here. So you've got townhomes that front Everett Keith, but you also have almost a buffer in landscaping. So staff's recommendation is to put them closer to actually front Everett Keith, but what the applicant is concerned about is, and we understand that from a marketability standpoint, you have industrial on that side. It's buffered, but the plants are low right now, so it's not very natural. You still see into an industrial area, and it might not be as marketable in that way if you have those units fronting on an industrial area. However, staff is keeping to that principle of walkability and having a closer build-to line, closer as opposed to further.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Bergson?
Yeah, just two, and one is similar to what I asked at the last public hearing, or I think actually it was asked by someone else. The tree canopy, do we know if it's like wooded throughout the whole property, if it's concentrated, you know, in certain areas, or what is the?
I can't tell you a percentage, maybe the applicant could. It is heavily wooded because of the streams, I would say. Some of the area to the east is not wooded. There is, maybe the applicant can answer it better, but essentially it's 50% maybe, I'd say. But I can't speak to the exact. I could get that for you.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. And then do you know offhand, and I meant to ask this with Alex Yards, if this is, which school are these zoned for?
What school?
Yeah, if it's, I'm guessing North Mac High School.
Yes.
Would it be the same with the one we just heard as well? Do you know?
I can verify all that information.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know, because they're kind of both in that Hambright corridor. So, thanks, that's all I've got.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Oh, Commissioner Rivers?
Maybe you can assist me. So is Dogwood Lane like the main entrance exit for this project?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No.
You can kind of, give me some clarity on that.
Right. So there are lots of connections.
Okay.
There's lots of connections through, and I'll go ahead and try to draw again. So here's Everett Keith Road, right? So Everett Keith Road connects down to Savoy, which goes out to the intersection of 115 and Alexander Anna. And so then you also have, this is Hambright Extension that they're proposing to build, and that goes directly out to 115 as well. So those are the main entrances that we expect. Dogwood Lane is more of an option of a connection of people who want to go a different way, who might live closer to that way.
So we have alternatives.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's all I got for now.
Do we have applicants have any presentation?
Yes, the applicants are here, and they do have a presentation.
Okay. We're ready.
Thank you. Thank you for having us tonight. Look forward to reviewing our application for Everett Keith Residential. As As part of the application team, we have NVR, we have Nicole Frombach and Scott Monday, who can answer anything specific associated with the development team, but they're a top 4 national home builder with 75 overall years experience in residential building and mortgage. Have done a number of projects within the Huntersville jurisdiction. Same for Bolton and Mink. Bolton and Mink is a new name, I guess, in the market. We used to be Colge, Nest, and Stone. Overall, 75 years of experience in engineering, landscape architecture, and planning. Worked on several notable projects within the Huntersville marketplace, all noted up there. So as we started the design process, we kind of identified 4 key points, trying to create diversity in residential product throughout the development. The second one being to advance opportunities to kind of expedite initiatives through the public good associated with the Town of Huntersville, Mecklenburg County, and NCDOT initiatives. And I'll get into some of these in more description further on. Creating a great pedestrian-friendly environment adjacent to future thoroughfare roadways and industrial uses. And then to minimize impacts to environmentally sensitive areas, which are steep slopes, jurisdictional waters, wildlife corridors, and mature vegetation. So this is, I'm going to kind of build off of Brad's presentation as it relates to a context map. So kind of slide west, you've got Highway 115, which is your initial intersection there with Hambright Road, which extends east to Eastfield. If I can, I don't really actually want to draw on this because I saw how complicated it was, but so that's the top red line there identified as Hambright Road. The dashed line extending beyond that is the kind of proposed alignment for the Hambright Road extension, which long-term has the potential, I guess, or the expectation to connect to Eastfield Road further east. We've got the 2 Duke Energy corridors. There's a 150-foot corridor, which is that broader yellow line cutting across the site, and then another 68-foot corridor, which is that one that kind of angles going down through the southern portion of the site. There are 3 jurisdictional bodies of water, or waterways, plus the pond. They're identified in the dashed blue lines there. And then, as Brad mentioned, we do have these sub-street connections associated with Dogwood Lane and Forest Lake Avenue, which is in the southeast corner of the development. The overall site is 106 acres, currently zone TR. Some of the adjacent land uses and properties are directly to the north is the construction material landfill. You've got several Brighton projects with the parcel kind of in the northwest quadrant of Hambright and Everett Keith being the proposed multifamily project. You've got Brighton subdivision, which is majority of it currently constructed kind of further towards 115. Brighton Corporate Center, which is the industrial complex directly west of Everett Keith. You've got the newly constructed or under construction Everett Keith Industrial just to the south of our development. And then also Dogwood Estates to the southeast portion. You can also see the connection to Eastfield Road from Dogwood Lane. We've got Asbury Chapel Road on the east side, which would be that first intersecting extension of Hambright Road. So just a little bit more context on some of the kind of site conditions, which will help kind of build the environmentally sensitive case that we're trying to portray. Is you could see these are the slopes associated with the site, and I've overlaid the kind of master plan for the development. The red being the most extreme slopes. And generally they're associated with the jurisdictional bodies of water. So between 50 and 100 feet of that center line of the stream, there's 40 to 50 feet of elevation difference. So 4 to 5 stories of elevation difference. So where we're trying to be a little bit more kind of sensitive to those areas and crossing where necessary, and then trying to make internal connections through some other improvements that we're proposing, which I'll get into in a second here. So as I mentioned, the site is 106 acres. Our proposed rezoning would be to neighborhood residential conditional district. As Brad mentioned, there's 259 for-sale homes. We're proposing 8 affordable housing units. The addition of the proposed dedication of the 10-acre park, which is associated with the pond on the southeast quadrant of the site. All told, throughout the improved open space areas, we have just shy of 23 total acres of of urban open space areas. And then, as Brad mentioned, we have submitted the TIA to NCDOT, and the town of Huntersville, and both have approved that report. I'm going to just go through now some more of the kind of intentionally designed open space areas that we've kind of integrated throughout the development to create a connection and a kind of a more intentional aspect of making a greater kind of design community and not just kind of focusing in an open space in one location. So for context, this is Hambright Road Extension, which is on the bottom portion of the plan there. So north of this is the townhome section. So we've got 4 open space areas located within this area. The first is Open Space Area A, which is a park designation. That is kind of the northwest quadrant of the slide I have here. Items associated with that are the recreational field, which would accommodate large multi-use recreation, soccer, football, things like that, but more in an informal, so not goalposts and goals, but the opportunity to have a really intentional, multi-purpose recreation field. Just kind of to the north of that, we have a townhome building that's fronting on an urban open space, which we're calling a hammock garden. So it's basically a pedestrian pathway to the frontage of those units, and then having a more intentional garden area with some kind of relaxation as you kind of tuck into more of the tree-safe canopy that's existing on site. We also, just to the kind of east of that, where that alley connection is connecting to the additional towns to the right, we have specialty paving area to kind of minimize that impact of the vehicular traffic through there. More of a kind of pedestrian, more of a motor court as it relates to the pedestrian and vehicular kind of relationship in there, and by softening that through adjacent butterfly gardens on both sides. That area is just over 2 acres, 2.13 acres. To the right of that, we have Open Space Area B, which is a pedestrian passageway, which essentially is a frontage condition that's linking all of those townhome units together through multiple lawn areas, water feature, more kind of community gathering space associated with a fire pit, outdoor seating, and then adjacent visitor parking. Open Space C is associated with the dog park. So every development, especially with this number of units, is always looking to be able to have a pet-friendly location. So this is a great opportunity to maximize this area and create this linkage between all of the adjacent open space areas in kind of the higher density area of the development. So you also see several pedestrian connections leading to either the end of alleyways or to the Hambright Road frontage, which also has a multi-purpose path. The smaller, kind of more quaint open space area is Open Space D. That's basically tucked in adjacent to the proposed affordable housing units. And that would have a multi-purpose green location, hardscape, more of the outdoor kind of gaming, kind of all-weather, ping pong, things like that, more of an active use for that location. This is moving just south of Hambright Road, and you can see Everett Keith Road. So this would be the area that essentially is adjacent to the existing Brighton industrial. So we have multipurpose area E, which is a large park. It includes a playground, earth mound areas for kind of multi-interaction play facilities, so it doesn't have to be a physical structure. We have decorative swings. We've got native plant material, and then as Brad mentioned, we also have basketball goal and half a court or partial court there to accommodate kind of like a multi-sport court. Just off the page too, it's kind of a little bit hard to see, but just on the right-hand side, bottom right, adjacent to the sand filter is the extension of the pedestrian movements through, and I hope that it shows up. Well, it shows up in the overall master plan, but this is one of the locations where we've got a pedestrian pathway that links other parts of the development. It's kind of hard to see here, but it basically comes, that pedestrian connection runs down kind of adjacent to the wet pond location, which then connects down to Dayflower Drive. So this would be the southernmost connection onto Eastfield Road. Sorry, not Eastfield, Everett Keith Road, sorry, I apologize for that. And to the right on Ruby Falls Drive, you have a kind of a signature terminus as you're coming down Dayflower Drive, which is Open Space F. Again, a park designation. So you've got a splash pad, a shade structure, lawn area for multiple activities, and then that connects to a wildflower corridor, as Duke has several restrictions as it relates to how much vegetation they would allow within their corridor, but we want to kind of accentuate that corridor instead of it just leaving as a blank slate. So that would be like a wildflower kind of meadow continuation throughout the site. As we move further east, you can see this is Ruby Falls again, so you can kind of see that Ruby Falls goes kind of north and is starting to curve. This is the extension of Ruby Falls going to the mini traffic circle. This is more of your kind of sport activity area. You've got pickleball courts, an open space kind of lawn area, dedicated parking specifically associated with the pickleball courts, and then additional kind of noise buffering for the rest of the development. This area is just shy of 3 acres. As we continue to kind of move east, there are open space H and I, so this is getting closer to the connection associated with Dogwood Lane. You've got Forest Lake, you can see right there, Dogwood, actually that should say Dogwood Lane, that's the extension that we have, but you essentially are directly adjacent to the Dogwood Estates development with the larger lots. These are two larger green space areas that are kind of multifunctional, not specifically tied to any particular use, but a lot of additional vegetation, shrubbery to be able to accentuate the lawn areas and create another gathering space for this side of the development. So both of those are just shy of an acre in proximity, and they both of them have frontage to public streets, for access. So one of the, I mentioned the kind of key design criteria that we started looking at as we evolved the plan was to create a diversity of home types. So as Brad mentioned, and I'm just going to kind of continue with that, is we essentially have 4 different product types, but 3 kind of general ones. So you have the attached residential, which there's 76. As Brad mentioned, we're at 29%, which is below that 30% threshold for NR. Those are in the kind of darker orange north of Hambright Road. There are 75 detached cottages, which are all alley loaded. They're in the kind of lighter orange color, south from Hambright to our kind of southernmost connection off to Everett Keith Road there. And then in the in the yellow, we've got 108 detached single-family homes. So those range from just over 50 feet in width to the 100 feet as you get closer to Dogwood Lane. In addition to that, we've mentioned the 8 affordable housing units that are being proposed associated with units in the townhome section. So these are architectural elevations associated with the different product types. The top left is the attached residential, covered porches, bay windows, variation in the frontage facades. To the right of that, you've got variations in the cottage homes, so narrower homes. It could be single-story or 2-story homes. As we mentioned, all alley loaded. And then the bottom 2 are examples of the 50 and 100-foot single-family detached homes. So as a part of the submittal package, we did include architectural standards associated with front porches, covered stoops, hardy siding, and then additional brick and stone accents. So getting a little bit more into kind of the technical aspect of what we were trying to do as it relates to the public good initiatives. We mentioned the extension of Hambright Road, and there's a reason for kind of stopping Hambright extension at the Duke Power easement. The current alignment that is essentially a dashed line on a piece of paper crosses the Duke Power corridor at an angle that's not acceptable to Duke, so there's been some coordination back and forth. So essentially what we did was propose the extension of Hambright Road to the point that we knew was acceptable. And then we're dedicating the future right-of-way to be able to accommodate the alignment in whatever fashion is negotiated between the town, NCDOT, and Duke Energy. So you could see that it's that area in gray and with the red outline, you could see that it flares out. So that would allow for essentially kind of like a deviation in that alignment or the straight alignment that goes across to the project boundary. And then also a construction cost donation based on the kind of payment in lieu for that additional construction. The yellow is associated with dedicating greenway easements that align with the town's greenway alignment, as well as the county's seam trail alignment. We're currently having additional coordination with Mecklenburg County as they're kind of working through their ultimate alignment based on some feasibility, and that's specifically associated with the slopes on this project and the kind of functionality of that alignment. But this essentially are the portions that would align there. We are dedicating those easements. And the last one, again, would be the dedication of the 10-acre park, which is that southeast portion of the site. Let's see. In addition to that, we have the construction of multi-purpose paths along Everett Keith and associated with the Hambright Road extension on both sides. So those are 10-foot pathways that are associated with those. So enhancing the pedestrian experience. So this first one, and ultimately I think the kind of opportunity here is to create that frontage condition with the homes on Everett Keith and Hambright through the cottages and the townhomes, still create that relationship to the street, but we're not considering it a buffer, we're considering it a landscape setback. So it's not intended to be a full buffer and create a complete opaque view corridor essentially down that those frontage conditions. The intent would be to enhance that frontage condition. Obviously, when Everett Keith is fully extended based on the transportation plan, or Hambright fully extended to Eastfield Road, the amount of traffic volume on those roads is going to greatly increase. So the difference between having that frontage relationship on a local street, which is narrower, more quaint, not nearly the same amount of kind of overall traffic volumes, versus having something that fronts on a thoroughfare, the ability to still have that kind of frontage relationship, but setting the homes back a little bit further creates a little bit better of a pedestrian experience. We're still maintaining the multi-purpose paths. We're actually enhancing those pathways with this kind of landscape setback. So that's basically highlighted in those yellow boxes that are basically the, and again, not looking to create a buffer, looking to create like a landscape enhancement on those frontage conditions. Let's see. So this would also be consistent to essentially the separation between adjacent uses. So I highlighted the perimeter buffer, which is shown in that green dash line. We're maintaining a perimeter buffer around the property, and really that's to create a separation between either consistent uses associated with residential or not consistent uses like the industrial, which is just south of the site or to the west of the site. So having that kind of setback area off of Everett Keith and Hambright is in keeping with that same thought process. In addition to that, holistically, we have roughly 2.35 miles of internal pedestrian walkways. So because we have such steep slopes throughout the project, it makes it very challenging to have this kind of cross jurisdictional waters connections from a pedestrian bridge standpoint. So what we've done in all the areas kind of highlighted in that broader kind of bluish green dash line are all 10-foot wide sidewalks. So a larger sidewalk than what would be required on your traditional local streets. And that is an opportunity to kind of create that pedestrian experience while having a multi-purpose path that we can link all of these sections of the development together. And then the last one would be obviously creating that easement condition there to be able to link the town's greenway alignment while kind of snaking back to the first crossing that you could make on Hambright Road, and then linking that up to the seam trail. So that provides a lot of opportunity for future pedestrian connectivity beyond the project boundary. And again, that's all done through a dedicated easement. And I highlighted the areas you can show to kind of identify the linkage between all of our open space areas, the 23 acres of open space areas, and these multi-purpose trails. So the environmental sensitivity ties back to the slope analysis, but then also our ability to kind of minimize vehicular and pedestrian crossings of the jurisdictional waters. As part of the kind of permitting process, we do have to show kind of avoidance. Are there any other ways to kind of make these sites work without having a certain number of crossings or impacting additional jurisdictional waters? So we've tried to strategically locate those to minimize the overall impact to jurisdictional waters. So currently, we only show 2 crossings of jurisdictional streams. Obviously, Hambright would then create another one once it got fully extended. But essentially, that was kind of the thought process, was to minimize the amount of jurisdictional crossings that would ultimately impact more stream or vegetation area, specifically associated with those really steep slopes. As part of that also, we're talking about revegetating. The question came up about the coverage area. Obviously having the 2 Duke Power easements through there. The site was actually timbered a number of years ago, but the overall site is approximately 70% covered. And we're maintaining about 20% of that total as it relates to undisturbed. From a tree safe standpoint, there are 290 specimen trees on site. The requirement is to save 29 of those, that's 10%, and we're saving 141. Obviously, as we try to kind of minimize any impact that we have with those steep areas and the jurisdictional water areas, that's where a lot of the really heavy vegetation, more mature vegetation is, because it wasn't timbered in previous history. And then we mentioned revegetating, any portions of the Duke Energy easement that we can, whether or not that's through kind of like a wildflower meadow situation, or create, as long as we have like enough separation from like the wire zones, we can put trees and other things like that within there, which are going to help to enhance those open space areas that we've designed. So in summary, just kind of hitting the high points again. The intent was to have thoughtfully planned amenities and common open space areas, provide a number of product diversity throughout the site, extend Hambright Road beyond our kind of overall need from an access standpoint. We have the proposed park area dedication of approximately 10 acres, the 8 affordable housing units, the enhanced pedestrian experience, and then that kind of environmentally sensitive thought process in the way that we went about our design. Did you want to chime in on any of the? Okay. So thank you. That was my presentation, and I appreciate the time today, and I'll take any questions.
Commissioner Rivers?
I'm going to go back to a certain side.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. So I saw in the staff report, and you've reiterated, you are willing to allocate 8 units for affordable housing. I appreciate that. Thank you, because I'm a big proponent of affordable housing. But my question is, those units, they are just the townhome units, correct? Or condo units? And
That's right. Right.
okay. And are those for sale?
Those are for sale. Everything on site, I don't know if you guys want to answer anything in particular, but yes, everything on site's for sale.
Are you willing to look into allocating any single-family homes?
So we did meet with staff after our application, and the comment came up about spreading those units throughout. So I think that's, I don't know, under consideration, or that's the proposal that we have to date as the units that we have in those locations. I don't know if there's anything in particular.
Yes, because I was going to ask about why was it just that specific area only allocated for affordable housing?
My name is Scott Monday. I'm with NVR Ryan Homes. Do you need my address, or am I free to? So in identifying areas for affordable housing, we did look at the attached area because we had an opportunity to create, or what we identified as being compelling, over 10% of attached housing being dedicated, which again is for sale. And our understanding was that the town of Huntersville currently has no for sale affordable housing units, and we were asked to by staff to, or at least to contemplate a program to kind of pioneer that effort for the town. And so we looked, we studied other jurisdictions where there is a for sale affordable housing component. We crafted this plan and identification of units and language which is included within the development notes based on what we've seen in other jurisdictions. So again, more than 10% or so of our attached housing product, these would be for sale units. There was a comment earlier about these units looking sort of different than the units around them, and that's not really the case at all, because these units happen to be flats, but from the exterior, they look just like two-story townhomes. There's a front door, and you walk in, and that door serves two flats, but from the outside, you can't tell. And we in many of our communities, develop that product type with our conventional 2- and 3-story townhomes regularly for sale at market rate. So this is something we do at market rate all the time. It's just in this case, we identified this particular opportunity, and what we're looking to do is, in close proximity to those locations, have those be 2-story townhomes, and then the remainder be 3. So when you're just looking around from the exterior, again, everything, even from the interior, there's no distinct difference between what would be affordable or in the affordable program. Correct, that's correct. Yep, that's correct.
Thank you for that explanation on the affordable housing. I do still like the idea of spreading them out, so I'd ask you to consider that when we hear next time. So this is currently zoned as transitional residential. Why this project? Why the rezoning? What is it about this plan that you're needing or wanting to move forward with?
Well, for a number of years, I was involved with the development of Brighton, so especially the sections north of Hambright. Brighton is just right across the street from Everett Keith. We have proposed transit center. There's Hambright connects, of course, now to Interstate 77 direct, and we've always felt like that this site was an opportunity to have greater density, as we believe it responsibly should, given its location. Which is again the proximity to the very and much greater dense Brighton. And so when we look at this, what we're trying to do is basically, as development moved down Hambright and Brighton is more fully developed, and on the most western edges of this site, kind of continue with that density and then soften the density as you move back. So we're still under 2.5 units an acre. It's not a dense site, but there's an opportunity given the transportation opportunities here, public and vehicular, in the proximity to 485, 77, of course, with 45 to 85, that this should be, especially with water and sewer available here, a more dense site than TR.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this might be for town staff, actually. One of the questions we've all received, or on this petition we received from neighbors, is about installing a gate. We've received this question before, so I just thought it would be good to talk about like what's possible when it comes to adding a gate on a road that's a public road.
So adding a gate to Dogwood Lane, would that be the question? So that wouldn't be consistent with the requirement to have the connection. So that would be a gate, and that would only be emergency use only. So that's not a connection. It kind of takes that connection away. It's gated. So yeah, staff's interpretation would be that wouldn't be consistent with the ordinance.
Correct me, well, okay, so maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but my understanding is also that on a public road, we can't put a gate. So they would have to purchase the road if they wanted to put a gate.
For a private gate, that's correct. It's got to be a public street.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Commissioner Merkesman?
Hey, evening. Where are you proposing that the construction vehicles will enter and exit the site?
If I may answer that and simultaneously address Commissioner Walsh's earlier question about phasing, because I think the answer sort of dovetails. The reason that we had not submitted a phasing plan is not the absence of doing that, but we really consider this as being developed almost fully in a single phase, okay? And so, and the reasons for that are, given the number of townhomes and given the number of cottages, those would not be subphased. And if you look at west of the creek that's closest to Everett Keith, there aren't enough single-family detached 50-foot lots there to develop as a single phase as well. So automatically, from a phasing standpoint, we are at least going to develop to the second creek, okay? But what we are prepared to do, given the discussion that we had with staff and about the phasing plan, we are prepared to identify the area east of the second crossing, or above Dogwood, if you will, as a second phase. And so in doing that, and the reason we didn't do that before is because we were concerned that if our clearing limits of construction were confined to the first phase only, we were concerned, since we haven't performed civil design to develop the site, that we may not be able to balance the dirt across the site and balance the site. And we didn't want the last section to have to balance earthwork, if you will, on its own. Because a lot of times the site really has to work all together to balance earthwork across the site, because we have so much topography across the site. It's a real challenge. We're not entered into civil design. However, in discussing with staff, it sounds like we would be able to extend our clearing limits to a future phase for the purposes of balancing earthwork. So on that basis, we are certainly willing to identify the area east of the second stream from Everett Keith as a second phase. And then to answer your question, the construction traffic would be entering in from Hambright.
Thank you. I was
Long
worried
answer, but I wanted to tie the
I was
two
worried you
together
might have
because
forgotten
that
by the
was
time we got to the end,
a
but
prior
like, so
question.
Hambright. And yeah, I also, I would appreciate the idea of having a phase two instead of having it all in one and saving that back end.
Happy to do that. Thank you.
And then, oh, let's see, my brain is starting to get tired. I just want to reiterate what I believe Commissioner Rivers brought up. If you could consider looking at mixing in the attainable housing units throughout, rather than having them all next to each other, like in one little pocketed area, that's something I would appreciate.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'll do the easy one first. Oh, yeah.
Address your earlier questions. I can't remember.
It's okay, it's okay. Yeah, the affordable units, yeah, we need to scatter them. I don't want, regardless of what you say, people know, oh, that's where the people with affordable units live. So they really should be spread out. There was some issue in the, regarding utility connections in the staff report.
Sure.
Can you tell me what's going on with that?
Utility connections, the utility connections specifically is the sewer tie-in. And we're in discussions, very productive discussions with the adjoining owners to resolve that.
Okay, so if we were approving this tonight and you couldn't get that connection, what does that mean?
So my understanding is that we would need to demonstrate at least a letter of intent or some sort of agreement for your approval. So we're not voting tonight, so we're in the.
No, I know. I'm saying if tonight it was approved and you were clear to go and you couldn't get that utility connection, what happens to your project?
From a civil standpoint, is there any alternative to that?
I mean, well, we've been in discussions with Charlotte Water on other opportunities. There's sewer going down Everett Keith and Hambright. Ultimately, Charlotte Water would prefer that we follow the stream corridor going down, which would then tie into the extension of Trails End. So that's kind of the alignment that's there. So, yeah, I mean, there are other mechanisms. Ultimately, it would have to be likely phased differently from a utility standpoint if we were going to make connections to Everett Keith or Hambright.
Right, so that's the preferred route.
Yes.
But there is other route, because there is sewer, there's the trunk in Brighton that comes down and crosses Hambright. So there is other optionality there.
So let's talk about the pond. Same scenario, we approve it tonight. When do we get the pond?
I I think we did provide language in the development note. I think the dedication would occur as part of or commensurate with the recording of the plat of the last phase or the last plat.
So if that were in phase 2, you could be talking years and years away.
Well, the development plan, the development once started, once home building starts, will be sold out in 3 years. It would take probably 2 years to work through construction plan design and approval of that. So, handful of years.
Okay. Let's talk about connectivity. I think in the report I see some issues about alleyways and some other things. In one of the slides you brought up, so looking at this slide right here, let's say I buy one of your townhomes up there in the northern section. And as people know up here, I'm a avid pickleball player. Other than coming down this road or driving to it, there's no stream crossing for me to get there, other than taking a long loop around. Am I correct?
Well, that is correct. We've provided some 19 parking spaces at the facility. You can certainly bike there or walk there and the various trails that we have through the community. The multimodal pathways are an extensive network, some 2.35 miles, I think we quoted, that reach every section of the neighborhood. So you certainly can bike, walk, or drive to the pickleball courts.
But crossing that stream, we'll call it Stream 1 there, is there any crossing there?
No, there's no crossing there.
Okay, so I basically have to go around to get to it.
You would have to go around. I mean, one thing we would like to point out is the span of that, given the topography, we showed the topography slide earlier, the span of that would be hundreds of feet, and it falls some 50 to 70 feet to the creek. So that's and not to mention it would involve a considerable amount of clearing in that area where certainly, you know, we're not proposing to clear. And as we pointed out earlier, under avoidance and minimization of those environmental impacts, which is a Army Corps of Engineers mandate when we permit the stream crossings that we have, we're asked to avoid and minimize those, which we've done.
Okay, with regards to the future greenway, I was unclear when you were, I read in there at some point you were giving an easement, but it got into the BMP, and then you were dedicating the greenway space, or we weren't going to build it, or I just...
So there's two things there. Essentially, I think possibly the best way to think about it is there's the town greenway, which is a north-south configuration, the gold lines up by the storm pond in the townhome section. That's a town greenway, part of a town greenway. And then there's the county greenway, which is navigating in the east-west fashion along the Duke corridor. And so
just one second. So the yellow one that I see there, you're calling that the town greenway?
Both are actually that goldish color.
Or goldish color.
So the way to think about the north-south, like in this orientation, up and down, that's the town.
Okay.
And then the other is the county. And so what we're saying is that we're dedicating the easement for the town greenway that runs by the pond.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in discussions with Mecklenburg County about the alignment and orientation and requirements of their trail, which have not been determined yet.
Gotcha.
So we set up a meeting with Parks. We started to have a discussion, and they were actually more focused on the parcel in Brighton, which is in the northwest quadrant of Hambright and Everett Keith, and just asked us to set up another meeting. So we're going to follow up with them on the alignment.
So go back to the previous slide or next slide. So the county with the gold color, yellow color, so they're talking about crossing the stream there on a...
Their alignment is unclear. I mean, in some...
It's wiggly line going all the way down through the corridor.
Yeah. They've also acknowledged that it's the feasibility of that is in question, and it's one of the reasons why, and they understand the cost and the feasibility of that, which is one of the reasons that we plan to discuss with them ways to utilize our infrastructure from a built condition to provide probably a more feasible route. Those are conversations.
If that were there right now, that's my question, then there'd be connectivity within the neighborhood. So we're going to have to cross the stream at some point. other than looping around? Because even Hambright Road will eventually cross that stream.
Correct, that's correct, that's correct.
I mean, so we're going to go across the stream at some point.
Right, right.
Okay. And was there, so all you're doing is dedicating any property to the county or the town, but not actually building any of that?
Well, we don't know, in discussions with the county, we don't know how much of the infrastructure that we're building could accommodate the trail alignment for the county. We don't know that yet till we talk to them. So there's things that we're building, it really depends on their alignment. So things we're building that could be used, and if their alignment differs from that, then we'll work with them on that. But we're certainly would by easement dedication accommodate the county trail through there, but we're trying to see if there's alignment advantages to some of the things that we're building to help supplement that. So then it would be a mix of build and easement dedication.
Okay, I think it's something we need to address for connectivity within that neighborhood. Another subject, the Eastfield Small Area Plan, the transition from Dogwood Estates up right now. I looked at the map, or actually it's right there, it's about 9 units, and then it quickly, and I think Brad brought this up, goes to 50-foot wide lot lines, which is not in keeping with that small area plan. Why not buffer that a little bit more so that it transitions? Because we do that a lot. I mean, we don't put apartment buildings next to, 5-acre homes type of thing. It seems to me that you'd want to kind of buffer that a little bit more, that transition out and comply with the small area plan.
We are complying, as pointed out, with the 2040 plan. The Eastfield area plan, we are buffering the Dogwood Estates. When I say buffer, the surrounding lot configuration.
Transition, maybe buffer's the wrong word. Transition. Transitioning from their larger lot homes. You got a few there, and all of a sudden it's 50-foot wide. So why not transition a little bit, have some more larger lots and transition a little farther north?
There's multiple reasons for that, if you wouldn't mind. So one is, when we look at, one of the things we're trying to do also, though we really frankly have to do with our plan, is make sure we're meeting market demand and consumer preferences, for one. There's all sorts of, planning philosophy and initiatives that, we want to get right, but ultimately it's the consumer that we have to satisfy from a demand standpoint. And quite honestly, 100-foot lots are not, that compelling in the marketplace now. And so the consumer, what we're doing is meeting consumer demand with our configurations, really of all three property types, but making perfectly willing to transition with a larger lot surrounding Dogwood. The Dogwood estate lots were not served by water and sewer when conceived, only served by public water. It's my understanding in the last 10 years or so, the home sites from at least Cedar Lane, I believe it is two rows down up, are still served by septic. We're served by water and sewer. So we don't want, we're trying not to be sort of sprawlish with those resources.
Gotcha. Thank you.
But I do have one other thing. One other, Commissioner Walsh, you'd mentioned earlier about the note that was creating some confusion as to a future rezoning or a third party or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? There was that discussion earlier. We looked at that. There was no intent at all to kind of create that confusion, and we're willing just to delete that note in its entirety so that it doesn't create confusion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Appreciate it.
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We do have 2 public comments for this hearing. Donna Thor. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Donna Thor, and I'm one of the sellers for the new development that MVR is proposing. And I just want to let y'all know that this property has been all these families' lives for 45 to 55 years or more. Some of them are second generation, so this has been a major decision for all of us. But I'm here to let you know that the sellers and I are excited about the new development, and we think it'll be a great asset to the community and the town of Huntersville. Last fall, NVR invited the neighbors in the area to a neighborhood meeting showing the plans that were proposed for development. NVR welcomed the feedback from everyone and answered the questions asked. They took that feedback back and made adjustments to some of the concerns for that meeting. And we as the sellers are excited for this development and think that NVR has done a fantastic job in designing and planning this development while taking the concerns of the existing neighborhood into consideration. And we, the sellers, think this project will be a positive asset to the town of Huntersville and look forward to it getting started. Thank you.
Becky Pago. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Becky Pettigrew, and I am addressing our 2407 for the negative, extreme negative impact it's going to have on Dogwood Estates and Dogwood Lane specifically. I won't waste your time because you've got our petition with an overwhelming majority of the people that live on the street, which isn't very, I mean, we're a small street. It's been a dead end for 72 years. We have people that have moved in most recently 6 months. We have people that have lived there for 50-plus years. And the people that I spoke with when we were walking around the neighborhood talking about this devastating event, they've said the reason why they moved there is because it's a dead end, it's got trees, it's quiet, there's no crime, and as soon as you connect that development and allow Eastfield drivers to drive down Dogwood Lane, all of the listed items, crime's gonna go up, the kids aren't gonna be able to ride their bicycles or play on the street, their chalk games, they're not gonna be able to walk. We've got families with babies. And so, you know, I understand that you approve or you're gonna probably approve the development, but you need to understand that we need something. I mean, this is gonna destroy that street, absolutely. Everybody's unhappy about it. And, you know, the Eastfield Road, people from the development are gonna be cutting through Dogwood Lane. The traffic's gonna be backed up the entire road because it's a bitty road. And the people from the development, if they want to go on the east side of town, they're going to use Dogwood Lane as their driveway. And I don't know what the solution is. We suggested the gate. I think probably you guys can do whatever you want to do. I think you can probably put a gate or some other alternative to protect the dead-end nature of the road. But it's really devastating. I mean, I've lived there for 35 years, and as I said, people have lived in those houses over 50 years. So, thank you. That's all I have to say, and hopefully you'll consider an alternative of some sort.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Item 9D, conduct a public hearing on annexation agreement with the town of Cornelius. Mr. Richards.
Good evening, everyone. I will be brief given the late hour. The item we have before us, 9D, is a annexation agreement with our neighbors to the north, the town of Cornelius. Back in 1991, we entered into an agreement to define the boundary between the town of Huntersville and Cornelius. That agreement was amended in 1996, and we're asking for another amendment this evening. The length of that amendment would be 20 years. This is scheduled also to be heard by the town of Cornelius at their May 19th meeting, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
Great, thank you.
Thank
See you in a minute. There's more, right?
All right, item number 9E, conduct a public hearing on petition Annex 25-01.
Good evening. I'll put my staff report in the record for Annex 2501. This is a petition for contiguous voluntary annexation. Here is the location of the site. It is approximately 4.93 acres, 2 parcels that stretches across Asbury Chapel Road, right about the intersection of Autumn Crest Here is a image of the plat, higher detail parcel. That is all I have for the public hearing. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay, thank you. We are on to item 10A. Consider adopting an ordinance approving petition Annex 25-01.
Yep. I make a motion to adopt annexation ordinance 25-10.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Item 10B, consider adopting an annex agreement with the town of Cornelius.
I do want to add one thing. I do want to point out that the excellent work done for this was with Emily and Jacob, as well as our GIS staff coordinating with the town of Cornelius, and just wanted to point that out for everybody. They did a great job.
Thank you. May I have a motion for item 10B?
I make a motion to approve annexation agreement with the town of Cornelius.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 10C, consider approving budget amendment appropriating asset for general revenue. Chief Graham.
Good evening. Yeah, it's good early, not morning yet. Good evening. I'm here before you to ask for the budget amendment from our equitable sharing amount of $185,528 to our general fund for the purchase of our modular vehicle barrier trailer system. This is the same system we went over when we did our retreat. Instead of putting this in the budget, which has already been removed, we're going to try to use our asset forfeiture funds to do that at this time.
Any questions?
Just a quick one. So with this purchase, we can pretty much cover any of the events we have in town?
Yes, sir. This is it's what we call a moderate level. This would cover our Burkdale events, town parades, events, things like that. We should be able to cover everything with this.
Thank you.
For the very last, probably few people that are listening at home, can you just describe what a modular vehicle barrier trailer system is?
Sure. I had a photo. It is a metal structure that is put up by all, it takes a couple officers put out, and it would be put at the entrance of any road, any streetway, anything like that we want to block off to keep vehicular traffic coming through there. As you've seen over the last few years, we've had a lot of folks run through big events like that. In New Orleans, we had the one up in Waukesha, Wisconsin, where they killed a bunch of folks. This is what those are to prevent that. So it had officers out there as well. If someone hits this, it folds up underneath the vehicle and keeps the vehicle from traveling down the road.
Commissioner Bergsman?
Not a question. I just want to thank you for the detailed information you provided us. And was kind of exactly what I was, looking for when we started tracking. So I really appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Glad I could help.
Other questions? Ready for a motion?
I make a motion to approve the budget amendment appropriating asset forfeiture revenue in the amount of $185,528 to the asset forfeiture capital account for the purchase of modular vehicle barrier trailer system.
May I have a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Item number 11, closing comments. Oh, whoops, excuse me, 10D. It's not on my paper. Let's see. 10D is the resolution for opposition to House Bill 765, which is, for those of you at home, 765 is a bill that would generally, at writ large, change the way zoning happens in the town of Huntersville, and would kind of take away control from the elected officials who get to determine in our planning department, who help determine zoning around our town. And I think we have it to go on the screen. There we go. So here it is. It is basically outlining how historically local governments have had the opportunity to determine our zoning. Our 2040 plan is a perfect example of this, of how we have a vision for what our town would look like, and this bill would take that ability away from us. It would implement some extreme measures in the intent to make housing more affordable, but in the event of that, I do feel like it would not do that for the town of Huntersville. In fact, have the opposite effect. It would probably contribute to gentrification in areas of our town where we do not want that to happen. And so before you, board, is a resolution that we intend to provide to our delegation in the General Assembly on our feelings on this bill. So any questions? Commissioner Bergsman?
I just have a comment I wanted to say, and it's kind of a shame. I don't know if they can hear us out in the lobby. The folks that were here, that it's ironic that we had multiple public hearings tonight, which this would drastically change the way those would look. House Bill 765 strips away the voice of local residents. It would force Huntersville and towns across the state to accept unchecked development with no public input. And that's not planning. It's giving away our ability to protect neighborhoods, manage growth, and maintain the quality of life for our residents. And while it claims to promote affordability, HB 765 does nothing to ensure homes will actually be affordable. In higher cost areas like ours, this bill could accelerate land speculation and expensive development and not help working families find housing. True solutions to the affordable housing crisis require thoughtful, community-led planning. Huntersville and towns across North Carolina deserve the right to plan for growth in ways that reflect local values, infrastructure capacity, and public input. HB 765 is a threat to that basic principle, and we're urging the General Assembly to reject it. And I have a motion if we're ready.
Yes.
Yep. Motion to approve the resolution in opposition to House Bill 765.
And may I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion or further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. All right, and now we're on to closing comments. Commissioner Rivers, any comments? No. Commissioner Walsh?
I've got a long one.
You're fired. Commissioner Dumas? No. Commissioner Hunt? Commissioner Quarles? Commissioner Bergsman? I do. One quick thing. I just want to thank the staff who put on Hello Huntersville on Sunday. It was an outstanding event, and I know they worked hard, and I greatly appreciate everybody who was there. We had police and fire and Parks and Rec, and appreciate them putting on that fantastic event. I had lots of comments today hearing about how wonderful it was over the weekend. So now, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
May I have a second? All right. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Good night.